And as usual, I start out by reminding everybody that nothing I said on the show should be taken in any way, shape, or form as investment advice. Not an investment advisor, and you should make all the investment decisions with the help of a licensed investment advisor. There's only one on the show, Danai, and while he's on the show, however, he's not acting like an investment advisor. All right. So if you didn't know that before, you certainly know now. And so welcome to this week's Brick Talk. This week we are joined by a guest, Keenan Falconer. And before I let him introduce himself, I just go through the usual people who you guys know already. So I'm Randy, and Danai is over there. And I don't know if Danai is hearing me, but that's Danai.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
I thought you were.
Me,
I thought you were doing the introductions.
Sorry, I'll do
Yeah.
the whole introduction. Why not? So I'm Randy. That's Danai, and Shay is. If you're watching, she's a lower part of the screen, and of course there's Keenan. And as I said, this week we want to just have a nice conversation, something called "Thought from Macro to Micro." We've seen, if you follow on Twitter, you've seen maybe some stuff from Keenan. He also writes in the Observer, and he's a young economist who I thought it'd be good to give a bit of a view, to hear some of his thoughts on things. And you follow us every week. We talk about the market. We talk about investing heavily from the retail perspective. But we also joke a lot about the economy. And like you always hear us talk about, Danai, one of the things Danai is saying, what I'm saying all the time is that the economy is everything. Right? There's not this versus the economy or that versus the economy. You know, yes, that's good for the economy. What about me? So I think it's a good chance to hear from somebody who maybe has a bit more knowledge around that sort of stuff for the economy.
Or a lot
itself.
more knowledge for that
Or
matter.
a lot more, a lot more knowledge, right? And of course, along the way, I mean, you hear from us, and we'd love to hear his views on the market. And as I said, everybody is welcome to join. So you can send a speaking request if you're following us on Twitter. And yeah, let's hear what you want to ask. Let's hear what you want to talk about. Let's hear, maybe Keenan can tell us something about the economy or something he sees happening that is directly related to what we see happening in the market, or what we are hoping is going to happen in the market, right? So we're looking for the profit from any angle, as always. So with that said, welcome, Keenan.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Randy, Danai, and Shay. Good evening to everybody. I'm happy to be here for the discussion.
All right. So Keenan, as you see that, I told everybody, I gave a little bit of the layout of how the episodes usually go, and it is, as a podcast, it's, you know, it's three of us talking, and whoever joins talks about the market. We get asked a lot about stocks. It's, you know, Trans Jamaica, the world, Jamaica's most popular stock these days. But as you see, I didn't do like a grand intro for you, and I mean, I don't know if we should have done one. I described how I think of you, who is somebody whose opinion I see on my timeline, and I mean, I think you're sensible. I like some of the things you say. I don't agree with everything you say, but I do like everything that you put out there.
Hear that part.
Say that again, did I?
That's the part I want here. You say don't agree with everything he says.
Well, maybe not. No. I don't know. But that's a good thing. I don't think.
The thing I want to wonder if you have any examples of that, you know.
I'm sure some will come up off the top of my head. No. There's one thing I did see, but I don't know. Keenan, you also write, and which is a dying sport these days. Worse reading. You write long form, so worse reading as even more of a dying sport. And I'm thinking of what it is that I first read from you that I thought was good. Actually, come think of it, it was around. There are things before, but it was, I think, around short form, but I read it in long form because it was big. You spoke about the cat bond, right?
Yeah.
On Twitter. Yeah, the cat bond. And so maybe, I don't know if that's a good way to introduce yourself. But like you, how do you introduce yourself? How do you like people to think of you? Let me put it to you.
I mean, I am an economist by profession and by training, and my professional experience really spans across the public sector, local private sector, and the multilateral space. So I have worked with the local office of the IMF. I have worked, at the Ministry of Finance, the Bank of Jamaica, the Development Bank of Jamaica, and also, some arms of the UN, done private consultancies for local financial sector entities. and I also write academically. So I published journal articles, book chapters. Of course, you saw newspaper articles, and I still do more independent research. So those things you don't get paid for. It's just something that you do because you like it and you want to share knowledge in the academe, and also on Twitter. So it sort of democratizes your approach to sharing knowledge in all mediums. I mean, I prefer to write. I must say, even though I speak extensively, I prefer writing. When it's put pen to paper. A lot of our history is very oral, but we need stuff to be, actually recorded. So
Documented.
I think it's important. And apart from just being an economist, I think a good economist has to be not only versed in the language of economics or finance or banking, but you have to have an understanding of sociology, development, ultimately, even things that may not be immediately apparent, like the environment, history, law, politics, and international relations. So I speak a lot about things that intersect in different ways, and I think that has helped to sharpen the kind of analysis that I hope to give day to day to the public.
Okay, I like that.
One would say you're a scholar.
Yeah, I mean, I like the academic aspect of it. So I like reading, writing, and research. So that may not always seamlessly translate to industry, in a practical sense, but it's not something that I really want to give up. So, as you mentioned, I write long form articles in the Observer. I mean, it's just 1,000 words every article,
These
whenever
days.
there is space to get it published. But that is it's not very extensively long, but it is written in such a way that it is still data rich and people can understand what the issue is at hand.
You say 1,000 words, but nowadays people have a problem reading past 120 characters. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's just the nature of how everything is going. But I mean, I like reading and writing things that relate to the economy, particularly Jamaica, and of course, for persons who followed me long enough, Jamaican history. So I have a library of books that I'm not quite sure where to put some of them. But I'll always read some stuff from it and share it, because there's no patent on, well, I mean, that's not accurate. There is a patent on different knowledge, but it should be something that is easily accessible to the extent that you can share it.
Yeah, so social knowledge of that's one of my passions, the social knowledge, that real history. If you think about, I often say to people that, like, when talking privately, I point out that we don't really know much about history. Like the typical Jamaican doesn't really know much about our history, right? If you ask typical Jamaican, it's slavery. Ended. Some things had gone. Then there was politics. Then there was Gilbert. Then there was more politics. There's FinSac in the middle of that. COVID, and then there's no.
Yeah, and there's a lot of nuance behind it as well, because most persons are not really familiar with that period post-emancipation going up to independence, and yet it's such an important part of Jamaican history. It is. I have said that it really informs the development of modern Jamaica, and I think that modern Jamaica, in some respects, resembles a lot of that period, even though it was 150 to 200 years ago.
Wait, sorry, what period?
So the period between emancipation in the mid 1800s to independence in the mid 1900s.
Wow. I wasn't even thinking of that. My personal thing is I've often wondered about Jamaica in the 70s. I don't know why. I mean, because the only thing I really hear about Jamaica in the 70s is, Harder They Come and Rockers. But like, what is industry then? A little thing I always joke about with I joke about on here when we're talking about Carib Cement is one of the things I say that Carib Cement was started by James Bond, right? And just a long. It's not really a long thing. It's if the guy who wrote James Bond was also obviously Ian Fleming, Jamaica, and he also said that if James Bond is anybody, it was his friend called Old Intrepid, who was another actual spy in the OSS back in the day, right? World War II. And that guy is the founder of Carib Cement.
Yeah,
and so it's a nice little way to bring it around. But then I think about that. What does that mean? That like what was Jamaica? What was Jamaica in the whole world picture back then in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, right? And what were the decisions? What were the people doing then that we are living and it's so obvious and normal to us that we don't think about it?
The 70s were a time of great upheaval. People have different views on what happened. It was very controversial. I don't think you'll ever get a single answer. But it was a turning point in our history, I think. And even just growth-wise, what happened during the 1970s, it sort of reversed a lot of the gains that were made in the previous decade. And a lot of people may not know that our real per capita GDP is today in 2025, 2026, roughly the same as it was in the early 1970s. So if you're counting real per capita GDP, say from 1962, it has not yet tripled, right? Over the course of those 64 years. It is barely just above double. So that takes into account all shocks, and taking one step back, essentially 2 steps forward. And I made a post about the various shocks that we had to go through. The 70s had 2 oil crises, and now, of course, we have a potential oil crisis on our hands.
With the same guys.
So, and that is an interesting commentary because every time there is a crisis like that, we all default to renewables. We know that renewables should be more prominent than it is, but it shouldn't have taken another oil crisis almost 50 years later for us to now say, look, we really need to accelerate progress on this. And so I think it's an interesting narrative because most persons may be familiar with the 60s and what happened during the 1960s and the latter half of the 1950s. So Jamaica's economy expanded at a rate that was it was meaningful growth. You're talking about average of 5, 6, 7% per year, and the middle class ended up being built basically at that time. It was the first real attempt to expand the middle class post World War II.
Sorry, I'm gonna cut you there, Keenan. I love where you're going on. Sometimes I might have to cut you just because I think one of the things I do try to do on the show is I bring it across to everybody. And I could be wrong in this, so people forgive me if I'm wrong and I'm assuming here. Would you believe I don't think most people have any idea what you mean when you said GDP? And yeah, we know it's those I look it up, it's the basket of goods, it's the general product. But what actually is it? Because you made a big point. You said that GDP now in 2026 is roughly the same as it was in the 70s.
So I want to be precise. It's the real per capita value added GDP, meaning that it is not. It has taken account of inflation. It has taken account of recovery from crisis and shocks. So basically, the real value of what we produce today is not much different from what it was in the 1970s. The real value of our total output is not much different today than it was in the early 1970s, right? Because we had the upheavals, we had the shocks, we took 2 steps back after taking 1 step forward. You had oil shocks in the early 1970s. You had different flooding. Of course, you had the financial sector crisis in the 90s. You had Gilbert. You had COVID. Now you have a potential oil crisis, and then many different storms interspersed over the entire period. So, and then that went back to the discussion about the cat bonds. The cat bond was an attempt now to mitigate that sort of risk in our fiscal planning, because previously we would have had to absorb those losses. And so money that you set aside for development that you really wanted to spend, you could not spend it on what you planned to spend it on because it was too busy now being tied up in recovery efforts. So, and that is demonstrates really the importance of um, disaster risk financing, because it gave the country a little bit of breathing room right after the crisis. So our insurance instruments had triggered, and as a result, we were able to access about $50 billion in liquidity that we would not have been able to find otherwise. So our immediate hole was about 80 billion, and then when you put 50 billion on it, it was now 30 billion that we had to contend with. And so in the immediate aftermath of a crisis, it would have been more difficult now to maneuver and to navigate, because there would have been no space to basically maneuver that situation.
But thankfully there is, right? And I mentioned that's one of the things that I did see you write about. I think you used, was it, you pretty much turned into a thread something that you had written externally, right?
Well, I didn't think that I wrote about the cat bomb externally, but I did do several posts about it towards the end of last year. And one of the points that I made was that because a lot of persons had a sort of misconception where it was concerned, given the extent of the damage. We know that the damage is some 2 trillion Jamaican. What the cat bond did was to provide immediate liquidity support so that it stabilized revenues right after the immediate shock and allowed it to start to recover more quickly, one. And two, it basically bought the government time to now coordinate a wider international response, which is what it did when it was able to access the $6.7 billion in international support. Of course, I think 3.6 billion US out of that was loans, 2.4 was now for the private sector, and then the rest of it was our disaster risk financing instruments.
When you say for the private sector, what's that?
So that sum is expected to now facilitate investment in PPPs, public-private partnerships, in across a range of different infrastructure assets. So PPPs, you can have them for roads, water, energy. You can have it for it's different infrastructure classes. It depends on what they agree to, but I don't think a lot of detail was given in the budget for it. But I expect that it will become clearer over time, especially because members of the domestic private sector will now be positioning themselves to avail themselves of some of those funds that they can engage in these transactions.
Yeah, wow, okay. So you speak fluent economist, which is good. But again, I make it my mission to try and bring it to everybody. You said, going on what you just said there, avail themselves on it, which sounds nice. What does that actually mean? Is it okay? I'll give you an example. You tell me if this is under it or if it's something else. So, for example, the government speaks about buying actual recovery materials, and I'm talking about food here. I'm talking about like construction materials, stuff like that. So that's a government spend in the private sector, obviously, or enabling government agencies to spend that way, so they have bigger budgets. Is that part of what you mean, or are you talking about actual funds being drawn down by financial institutions and invested on behalf of the government? That's all. Which one is it?
So the essence of PPPs really is that the private entity is now supposed to take on some risks that the government either cannot or it would not be prudent for them to do it. And why that's common in infrastructure is that if you're now rebuilding better than you did before, then that involves a lot of maneuvering. So, for example, like acquiring lands or moving people, or you have certain other financial risks in the project timeline that the government cannot absorb on its own because they just don't have the resources. So that's why you have private entities coming in. Now, the private sector takes on some of those risks, and then consequently they get some of the returns commercially when the project comes to fruition, and then it achieves commercial viability. So it could be building a bridge, it could be sewage, it could be anything of that sort. That the private sector's role is now to assume risk and take that away from the government, because it would cost them more, to be able to take on some of those risks.
I think Trans Jamaica is a great example of that, right? So while it started out many years ago, it was in a sense public-private, and then it now being fully divested by the government.
Well, yeah, at the end of most PPP transactions, the expectation is that the government eventually assumes full ownership. So there are different models, but they're all basically leading to the same thing. So the private sector is tasked with building, or operating it, then transfer it, or they build and design and then transfer ownership and operation to the government eventually. So we have different forms of that for different infrastructure assets, depending on the complexity.
How do you think of that with, our current government, their main ideology is the opposite, not necessarily taking it on, but, they seem to want most things in the private sector, or not necessarily the management of things on their side, push it more to the private sector side. Do you think that would be more of what they're looking at now, or do you think of anything now that you'll be looking at that would say, all right, that would be in the government's hand at the end of the partnership?
Well, it ought to be. It's just that we may not see it because the time horizons for these things are often very long. So that it could stretch into the future of maybe 20, 30 years. And that is regardless of administration. Of course, I know that the current administration is very private sector oriented. So they, regardless of that orientation, though, it is normally expected that for public infrastructure and assets like that, the transfer of ownership should eventually go to the government.
Okay. So that's similar to, we'll bring it back to like Trans Jamaica. That would be more like, is that you're talking about like the end of the, let's say 2035, I think, or 2036, when the Trans Jamaica concession agreement is up and technically the road reverts back to ownership by the people of Jamaica? Or do you mean like the divestment itself that the government chose to do? Yeah, the actual management where...
Well, it can be management. It's either operation or ownership or both. So
okay.
It really depends what the specific terms of the concession or the arrangement are.
Okay. That's not bad. Yeah, I like the Trans Jamaica case because it is again the most popular. I don't know if you know, but it is the most popular stock on the market. Everybody and their cousin loves it, especially today. It's a heavily loved one.
By trading volume
in every measure. Trading, speaking. Everybody talks about it, everybody wants to buy it, everybody buys it. If you check, trading volumes are the highest. So,
correct. It's ownership, in terms of ownership, I believe it has the widest ownership because of how it was sold. I was promoted heavily by the government, and then the second offer for sale where the government sold their actual final stake. That's also widely supported. In terms of pricing, if we look at right now as we speak, the top advancers from the start of the year till now, Trans Jamaica is number 3 and 4. And 3 and 4 because it trades in Jamaican and US dollars. Today it announced a dividend, so lots of very, very happy shareholders. I think, as I mentioned before, it has the most shareholders by trading volume. nothing is close to it. By actual trades, people who actually are trading it, nothing is close to it. It is way ahead of every other stock on the market in those regards.
Well, you have the numbers. I mean, I admit that I don't follow the market as
Oh, that was one of
intensely
my questions, you know.
or as closely as you do, because I'm not, even though I have affiliation with the private sector and with the financial sector, I'm not so immersed in some of the financial aspects of these things.
And don't mind that. Listen, honestly,
Wait,
I've spoken to economists over the years. Most economists don't. Why is that, by the way? I wondered why. I remember when,
that's
like,
a question I want to ask.
yeah, and you guys can jump in with your questions. You have it today. It's just, really, why is that? Because I remember, like, also how happy Dan and I were talking about when Dr. King joined the board of, what's he on the board of?
Jamaica.
Or Jamaica.
Well,
No,
I was
not
actually
Jamaica,
thinking
sorry.
Jamtees.
Jamtees.
Yeah,
Oh.
Jamtees. And one reason I'm happy about it is because I'm always thinking, like, most people, most regular Jamaicans, putting it plainly, afraid of maths, right? Most Jamaicans afraid of maths. And so they consider anything with numbers in it maths-ish. And then there's a portion of Jamaicans who are in the world of quote unquote maths. The accountants, the accountants, and accountancy is a broad field. The economists, and we tend to have a nice suite of both accountants, and we have some popular economists like yourself, right? And I just always wonder, those two classes of people are the two classes of people who seem to touch the stock markets the least.
Yeah, I think because there's obviously a branch of financial economics that many persons will probably find themselves in, but I think there's more complexity around econ rather than finance. So you find that even persons who don't really have an inclination for math can sort of navigate their way around financial concepts and business because they see it and they experience it. But from an economist standpoint, we are more concerned with like forecasting and projections and statistical analysis and econometrics and the things that persons may not readily have an appreciation for. But finance, we all know the language of revenue. We know what revenue means, profits. We know what expenses are, and I think because that Jamaicans are very entrepreneurial people, so we can relate to those concepts because we live that every day. So I've always said that finance is more closely aligned with accounting, whereas economics is more closely aligned with like statistics.
Ooh, well, outside of the shots you fired at the finance guys a while ago, that's some heavy shots.
No, it's a good thing. I mean, because it shows that finance is easily understood. It's more a shot at the economists because the economists now cannot sort of break it down for the public, which is why it's a little harder for many persons to understand.
What I told you, many finance people would fight you on that.
Yeah, I mean, if it says not shots, and just fire some more.
No, I think, not to say that I'm not trying to, oversimplify finance.
No, man.
Finance can be a very complex field, but it is easier.
Generally, it's pretty simple.
It can be made easier to understand. Not that it's simple, but it can be made more easier to understand.
Yeah, what I think
I do
is
not
that.
disagree.
What I think is that I agree with you. I think that there's greater reward in the simplification of finance, right? Whether it be from the perspective of the hosts want to simplify it because you need to have some amount of trust in order to give. They're selling you something. So you asking, what am I selling? What am I selling you? I have to sell you something. I have to have you understand what it is I'm trying to sell you, right? So there is that. While economists aren't necessarily trying to sell to the people, right? You sell to members of parliament, really. So that's a smaller a smaller
I think
target
there's
audience.
a lot more nuance in
But
economics.
and it
There is,
also
but
goes
wait,
back to
sorry to cut you, what I wanted you to, I want you to touch on there, where I disagree with you there is that you say, finance is, maybe easier to understand. And I do agree with that. It's what we do as people, especially on entrepreneurial people, as you pointed out. But econ, I think, in the same way that finance is the language of business, which is what it is, econ is the language of people. That's truly what I
yeah.
think it is. It's how we do
And
everything. It's what we do. It's what affects us, even if we don't know it. So I think that econ does itself a disservice by thinking that, we're just harder to understand. Because if at the core of it, it's just people's lives, because that's all it is. What people's lives want, and what they value, really.
right. So it goes back to
Then,
what I was saying earlier about the sort of multidimensionality of economics, where you can't just have an appreciation for math or statistics, but you need to know other things related to history, development, society, and so on. And as a result, that sort of adds a layer of complexity that you may not fully understand. So, for example, look at Jamaica. Like Jamaica's case, we have simultaneously low inflation and low unemployment. And in economics, that's not something that's not something that happens very often or in many places. But the only person who could explain why it's happening in Jamaica is probably going to be an economist. And economists is economics as a discipline is complicated by the fact that it uses so many models. Everything that we talk about is based on some model that was conducted somewhere in the past under different conditions, probably repeated over and over again, and then we come to this conclusion and we try to apply it to real life. But the problem with real life is that real life often deviates from models that we are thinking about.
that's
And
wild.
as a result, the average person is probably going to say, no man, that is too complex to think about. Like, just give me the finance and tell me whether you're making a profit or a revenue or a loss or something, because that's easier. But this no, and the explanation for the inflation and unemployment paradox that I gave you a while ago was that most of the employment that is being made, or the addition to employment, is not really at the higher end, and it's not sufficient to drive inflation. So that is the theoretical explanation. In practice, there are different factors that militate against that relationship between unemployment and inflation.
All right. So, well, let's do it. Well, you touched on a bunch of things there. One, yeah, what my pushback there I put into is that it's not that it's harder to understand, because it is still just people. I think it's just that everybody who understands it mostly says it's so hard to understand, so they don't ever bother to explain it. If you want to bring the people in, you have to bring the people in, right? Which is something that Dr. Clark was getting better and better at doing.
You think economics is just as easy to explain? It doesn't need to understand as finance?
I think they're the same thing. I think that they're the same thing. But I also find it very funny how both arms of that both sides of that ruler say, listen, this might be a little more complex. The guys on the other side of the ruler have it a little easier. The finance guys say the same thing.
I don't know that finance guys said about economics. I don't know that. I know finance guys say that just have this idea that finance is generally harder to understand than people say it is. But I don't necessarily find them comparing.
You might actually be right.
And I don't disagree with economists that econ is harder to understand generally than finance. I think finance is easier to understand. I think there's a lot of the content can be easily distilled.
I think both.
Econ, and there's more. There's more to it in econ. There's more to econ and finance, in my opinion.
But that's like saying there's more to. That's like saying that there's more to the economy than my earning or my production. I mean, yeah. They're the same thing.
I think of finance as an output of economics. So there's a piece of finance that comes down to or of econ that comes down into into finance. Oh, so there's certain parts of it that we see, we experience through finance. At the end of it, there's more at the top for finance. For econ, there's so much happening in the economy that not every piece touches your area of finance.
But not everything that happens in finance touches your area of finance. Like we are heavy.
No, I know that's fine.
Yes, I'm saying they're the same thing. In my view, they're the same thing. But Keenan, I don't know if you meant to, but you touch a nice topic there. Econ at its core is what? It's the society. It's the study of a society's. Well, sorry, I'll let you define it.
It's just really the study of production, consumption, distribution, supply and demand at its most basic level. It's about resource allocation. So it's always what would I call finance?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, finance is pretty much the same thing, but in the context of an entity or a business. You're now talking about allocating resources for that business, but that may not always be as a result of supply and demand. There are other factors that go into that. But economics you're talking about.
No, I wouldn't agree then.
No, but hold on. But econ suffers from the same thing where supply demand, but there are other factors that go into it. That my favorite economist.
From your definition, I would agree with Randy.
Yeah, they're the same
finance
thing.
Being the same thing. I wouldn't call it the same thing. I'm thinking of finance as a more narrow, as in just a more narrow than just in many ways. Yes, supply, demand, and production. But at the end of the day, it's what do I call it there. I think of it as a more as a more distilled thing. Because receive and then I get finance. It's more related. On a personal level, not necessarily personal, but it's more entity-wise related. I'm speaking of it in a more narrow term than everything. When I think of economy, that's what I'm saying. It's everything. It's lives. It's people.
But it's the same thing. If Carreras, Wisynco,
I don't disagree.
And Seprad raise prices, inflation goes up. That is inflation going up.
Yeah, but is that finance? I think it's economics.
Carreras,
finance to me is just
Seprad.
What would I call finance?
It's a good question. So for me, my personal definition, finance is the active attempt at creating value and increasing value.
In a lot of ways, I mean, in every way, yeah. I would say
it's an active attempt at increasing value. So you allocate the value that you had.
That's why it's more thing. That's why it's a more narrow thing. The active portion.
But what's econ?
Is everything.
No, but econ is also the same thing. So correct me if I'm wrong here, Keenan.
But it just is. You get me? It's just I don't have to put any intention behind it for economics to take place. Finance, I have to go and do these things and make sure, and I have to think about certain things and put certain things in place for finance to. That's why I think of it as a narrow. As I think of it as it goes to receive. So economics is there, and then the layer intention comes thing, and then I start thinking and doing certain things, and then that's where finance is created. That's what I think of it.
Okay, I guess you could say that finance is really a subset of econ.
That's what I see. Yes.
My main differentiator though is that I think econ is really more theoretical, and finance is more practical. So economics, like I gave with the example with unemployment and inflation, in theory, this is what should happen, but in practice, for other reasons, this might happen.
So I found that funny because, like you said, the problem with real life is that it doesn't match the model. It's not a problem with the model.
That's what I see. Exactly. I see it as maybe the model not fitting,
and that's why those things are often revised. So you can't apply certain models to certain situations. And that's why sometimes the opposite effect of what you think might happen really does happen. So you can't rely extensively on theory. You do have to assess local circumstances and remember that economic models at the heart of it are made from real tests. So
Correct.
you have a real life scenario, and but then that could have been done years ago, or under certain conditions, or at a specific time, or something that acts as a delimitation why it cannot be widely applicable. It's just like sampling, and as a population, you cannot apply the sample to the entire population if it's not fully representative. It acts in the same
True.
way.
And it's never
That's
the
why I
only
don't. That's why I
time.
don't like modeling. I think things are too chaotic for people to decide on certain things, especially in modeling. We generally have to make certain assumptions that in
Yes.
reality, as I say, reality often disagrees with.
Yes, it makes several assumptions. So, I mean, just thinking about something simple, rise in minimum wage. People think that it will lead to mass unemployment. I mean, it does lead to unemployment in some respects, like individually, but you cannot
Mhm.
make a case that it's now going to be beyond specific segments or sectors or circumstances. So you can make that point that yes, you think a few households may not be able to hire people who can work on minimum wage, but it's not a case where, and
I
this
think
increase, yes, this increase in minimum wage is now going to suddenly lead into a large increase in unemployment.
And
I
that's
think I might have just properly defined the thing that separates the math class from the econ class. They the thing with math, we strongly learn our own. I don't know if I just my audio just sounded
no,
different.
we're hearing you. We're hearing you.
Okay, yeah.
Hear you clearly.
The variables are not friendly, right? You can't you can't you cannot limit variables. It's just what it is sometimes. At every point where you try to do it, you have to have the realization, hey, I'm in a position where this only works as long as this happens within this box. So when I go to, I've never liked modeling because it feels like that. You know, it feels like, oh, we're putting a box on something we can't really gauge.
In order to get an
Yeah,
answer.
exactly. But
But
So
but
exactly, like I'm not trying to get an answer. So in math, we were. I think I'm very okay with. I don't have an answer.
right, but modeling, the whole purpose of modeling from an economic standpoint is that you cannot credibly test real world assumptions with everybody that needs to
Mhm.
be in the model. So therefore you have to simulate it. And
Mhm.
that's why modeling is important, because I cannot gather all the people in Jamaica in one place. I cannot interview them. I cannot collect data from them and now make a certain pronouncement on what I'm trying to do. Worse can't do that with people in other countries or everybody in the entire world.
Mhm.
So we just have to observe behavior over time, and then we come to this conclusion. So every theory that is in economics is based on work that took decades to do.
Mhm.
Um, you know, so economics as a discipline, I think maybe took off. With like people like Adam Smith, David Ricardo, and those persons in the 1700s. They started to think about theories about the invisible hand, and they know that sort of ties into finance, because then do you want a completely laissez-faire economy? Do you want something with more government intervention? Which one works best? And then that's how those theoretical debates came about. And as
Mhm.
a result, we now uh, have our preferences as to what we think is a better economy. Some people think more government intervention, less government intervention. But again, at the end of the day, all of those things can only be tested in the real world.
Mhm.
Yeah. And when the real world.
That's just generally one of the things my mind is against. And even as an investor, I can see where it holds me back in certain ways. I find other people are just more readily, in some ways to their detriment, more readily okay with us arriving at an answer. They take assumptions, or they try to find something about. But my mind is always saying but, which is a very interesting thing. I've seen a lot in clients, and I see Randy clients as well.
Yeah. But people want the easy answer. But
People want an answer.
they want an
Easy.
answer for sometimes when there isn't none. Yeah.
There
However,
there is sometimes I just don't know. And I have to be okay with, or I know how much I know, and I can't go. I going beyond this is within the realms of I don't know at this point, and I have to understand I'm operating within that box.
Yeah.
People are not okay with that generally.
So one time I made a post on Twitter that said, a meteorologist is the second best job where you can be consistently wrong and still not lose your job. And economist
What's the
is the
first?
first.
You think?
So
when
I don't want to do it.
Keenan, when I said that,
If I say more, I'm in trouble.
when I said it, I got in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble.
So because there's no penalty for being wrong as an
There is,
economist.
but
You know,
you guys
it's not-
just don't
it's
pay
not
it.
like-
You guys just don't pay it.
yeah, economists don't.
Everybody
But-
else paid it, right?
But I mean, it's not like doctors and lawyers and people like that have to incur legal penalties. But humor aside,
Mhm.
that's just to say that in economics, it's either nothing is wrong or everything is wrong. So
Mhm.
it's based on how well you can justify an argument, because the fact is we really don't know. So I was speaking with somebody the other day and trying to evaluate the impact of tax proposals. Yes, we know this might happen in theory, but we cannot reasonably anticipate what might be either an increase in revenue or a revenue fallout. All of those things are based on revenue forecasting and making assumptions, and then that boils back down to just trying to assume. So we assume. So just use that as a real life example. The price of oil. Nobody 4 weeks ago could have predicted that the price of oil would essentially double.
I
And
don't
so-
know that. That's
And so
true.
when you
but go ahead.
when you make the budget, and the
Uh-huh.
budget is done with an oil price of $60 per barrel, we think that everything is going to be fine, because that's exactly what happened. At the start of the year, the government made an assumption, because it is an assumption, that oil prices will be $60 per barrel. We assume that inflation will be around 5%. We also assume that interest rates will continue to be at this level, and so on and so forth. And those are the things that go into making the budget. But if something gets changed, then that entire budget it gets ripped up and you have to start again. So that's why I made the point that perhaps there may have to be some amount of recalibration. If the oil prices suddenly go up, that means more imports. That means further inflation. Inflation could now result in a fiscal overperformance as well, because you're getting more taxes on fuel. But it also inflates on the expenditure side, which then now can change the nature of the allocations that you're trying to make. So those are it's such a sensitive discipline that it requires constant monitoring, and that's why monitoring and surveillance is such an important part of economics. They track high value indicators daily, because you cannot tell when something is going to change or how long that change is going to last.
Mhm. I mean, I like that. To me, you're saying a lot of things that I know I hear the very same thing said in finance circles, and I think being in none of them officially, but looking at both of them, I often see very clear, what to me look like very clear overlaps, where both sides are saying the same thing and thinking that it doesn't. Well, you just can't know, right? They say, well, I can't really forecast what the profit for Carib Cement is going to be at the end of the year.
No, you really
because
can't.
You can't, but you can. It's difficult, but you can. And finance, well,
Uncomfortable,
it's uncomfortable to do, but you can.
especially for the kind of mind that is generally drawn to finance or economics. Yeah.
Well, you can, but it now depends with what reasonable accuracy you're able to.
And I know from experience that if you do it more, you get better at it. It's just how it works. You get better at it. And so I mean, as much as you do say, Keenan, that there is the economists don't have to pay the price. I mean, that's a bit humorous, but they do. We all do. And there are economists who work at the, let's say, closer to the line. So they're making decisions for things that they expect to see the impact of 6 months from now, 8 months from now, 18 months from now, right? Not necessarily 10 years from now, right? Like when the guys at the BOJ crunch the numbers and decide to move the rate a certain amount, they're not necessarily saying that this is going to benefit us in 2050. now they're thinking about that later in the year, next year, right?
Mhm.
And so maybe I think maybe you might want to.
I was about to say that Keenan might have been one of those crunching the numbers.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know. Keenan, did you touch that sort of thing?
No, not really. I did a lot of, as I said, monitoring and surveillance for the IMF. And then no, I did a lot of data gathering when I was working in the statistics department. So I got that exposure to data that you have to track daily, because that if something, and I mean people who are involved in business, who work in the financial aspect of business, can attest to why that's important. You know, you can't wait 3 months down the line or 9 months down the line, and then you miss something. It's data that changes either daily or weekly or something, to ensure that you're meeting the targets that you're supposed to meet. So that's why surveillance is such an important function in that respect. But back on the wider point of, say, the decisions that are made, yeah. So if you're in government, I mean, governments and policymakers make policy decisions that they have to then account to the public and the populace for. And as a public servant, whether you're elected or not, so you know, nobody elects anybody who works at the central bank, but they all work in the national interest. But they, for making a decision, it is only, you know, of recent vintage that you are now held more accountable for some of the decisions that you make. Because look at Jamaica's fiscal responsibility framework, for example. You know, it sort of boggles the mind that prior to 15 years ago, thereabout, we didn't have something like that in place. Because so there was no way to hold people accountable for reckless fiscal decisions that would have been made, that were clearly, you know, inimical to the best interest of the population. And now you have the central bank being independent, which is, both of those things are functions of legislation. So it is the fact that we have laws that compel us to do the right thing. And because people are people, and without that force behind you, you may have some incentive to deviate from it. But no, when you bring the people in, and it's the same thing with something like inflation targeting, because you communicate to the public that this is your expectation around it, and it also feeds into inflation expectations as well. So that's why greater transparency, greater accountability, those are things that matter. And I've also said that Jamaica's economic transformation of the last 15 years thereabout is not so much because of production and consumption and what we've been able to do economically, but rather the fact that we are now compelled by laws to do the right thing. And that was as a result of social consensus. So, you know, when you had the government, the trade unions, private sector, academia, and civil society all coming together, you know, that is how we were able to now chart this direction going forward.
All right. I mean, I like that. I like how it sounds, but I don't know. Are there is there no anything in place to punish the deviation from that?
Incidentally, you know, no, I don't think you're going to send people to jail for you know,
that's my problem.
wrecking the economy. So or making a decision that was clearly not in everybody's interest. It just means at the end of the day you break a law, you know, but then there are also escapes from it, which is why we try so hard to follow it. So it's more about building the habit than anything else. And once you become accustomed to the habit, then the law, you know, it doesn't act as a coercive force anymore. It's just there as a guide.
It reminds me of asking politicians to put in laws that punish politicians.
Yeah.
Like,
You probably never get that. But,
yeah. But there are some caveats. So that's a funny, maybe a good segue to it, where we don't have any new problems, right? This is not a new thing. So there are things that were done from way back, going back to that time that you mentioned, Keenan, in the 60s and the 70s, where certain things were put in place, and they're put in place for that reason. So, for example, I always remember that one of the things is that there are only two people under the Constitution that have to be elected. So, Prime Minister and the
Minister of Finance.
Minister of Finance. Yeah, and I believe that there is. Why is that? Do you know why?
I mean, it's just the principle: no taxation without representation. And since the Minister of Finance is responsible for bringing the appropriations bill to Parliament, remember, every budget exercise, as is happening right now, it is, yeah, we all see the debates, but we don't sort of have an appreciation for the finer technical aspects beneath it, which is it's legislation. You're passing an appropriations bill every year to take a sum of money out of the consolidated fund and to apply it to these ministries, departments, and agencies, or all the spending items. That is what happens every budget exercise. So you are basically now debating the legislation and whether you should now change some of those proposed allocations or not. And at the end of the day, when it is passed, it means that you have given the Minister of Finance the power to take money from the government's main bank account and to put it and spend it as it is laid out in the budget. And so why that provision is there for the Minister of Finance to be elected is because we would prefer if that person represented us, the people. And that's for that reason that person cannot come to Parliament through the Senate.
So it can't be assigned, it has to be truly chosen in at least one constituency.
Right.
I wonder if I feel like there's more behind it though. I think because a lot of those principles come back down to not that that's a small principle, that's a core principle, representation of the people being necessary for certain things.
You have to think about the awesome powers that the Minister of Finance wields.
Yes.
So, the Minister of Finance has full and total control over how every single dollar is spent in government. And that is not, I don't want to trivialize what that means, and there are several other pieces of legislation that accord the minister with incredible powers. So the minister can sign off on, for example, the large-scale Pioneers and Act, which is supposed to attract investments of $1 billion or more, very large projects. The minister has ultimately the say in which concessions for taxes can be given, tax write-offs, waivers, subsidies, and things like that. The minister can decide if he or she is persuaded that this is going to have an economic benefit for the country, then I can give up this tax revenue and I must justify it. Or they can now say, we will give you a moratorium here or something. So it's very, very significant, right, in terms of tax revenues, tax expenditures, and how those are allocated. So, and we're talking about almost $1 trillion worth of tax revenue.
Yeah, so you want to ensure that that's tied to the people, and so being in the lower house ties it to the people, and being in the lower house means that everybody else in the lower house can question your opinion or require you to respond, and it makes you exposed to the people. You carry back to it. I mean, any Jamaican can go to Parliament and view the proceedings, and so you are able to see the people who are in charge of your money, and so one of the people there has to be the person who has the ultimate power on your money. It's a good principle. Maybe with a little bit of a side note, a segue. One of the things I'd seen that I thought you written, but you didn't write it, but I'm assuming you agree. Well, I shouldn't say you agree with it. I don't know if you agree with it. I'm asking. A lot of talk nowadays is around, against a side note, JPs and the need JPs and the side stamping. And so I think I'd seen it on your timeline. You weren't the one who had written it. I think it was Yannick Page who wrote that article.
The reason why I agree with it is because I'm a JP. So I
Mm.
know how difficult it is to have to coordinate this thing, and it just doesn't make any sense. Like you're talking about spending. It was written by Yannick Page, but I agree
Mhm.
with every word of it in the context of productivity and efficiency, and beyond that, just the sensibility behind it. You know, trying to find a JP in almost every single instance. So, a lot of persons have a misconception that these are things that you have to perform as a JP. These things are actually called voluntary declarations. So, it's
Mhm.
not that JPs are required to do these things. It's just that businesses and entities, government agencies, see it as a reliable form of verification. So more than other stuff, which is why NIDS is supposed to solve the issue. Because if you have a verified ID, then you ought
Mhm.
to be able to you know, trust it, and it should be reliable. But no, we think that a JP is the most reliable way to authenticate something, which may or may not be the case. Obviously, there are some things for which JPs will still be needed, like um,
Mhm.
you know, certifying affidavits and things like that on the judicial aspect, which is what they should focus on. The judicial aspect, like settling jury lists, uh, processing spirit licenses, and
Really?
detainees
Can remove
reportees. Yeah, these
the
are
it
all
is my
functions of a
intention
JP.
sign.
Oh, what was that?
You guys can remove the it is my intention sign.
Well,
It is my
you know,
intention to apply for a liquor
not not
license at the next sitting of whatever.
not, not to remove it. It's just that you grant the license. So yeah, I mean, guess we don't have the authority to remove it, but we just, you know, approve its
Mm.
removal kind of thing. But then that rarely ever happens. Um, so you're talking about other things like mentorship, mediation. These are the
Mm.
substantive roles of a JP. Verification is not the 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 biggest part of the job, which is why there are other means to verify. So you're not getting rid of JPs. You're just, you know, preventing them from having to serve that particular function so that they
Adjusting the
can
role.
focus on other things. Yeah,
Adjusting the role,
it's,
yeah.
yeah, it's just that if a business place insists. So like the other day, I had to verify a letter that was already verified by the person who wrote it. So
Mhm.
there are medical doctor and they have a stamp, and they stamped it with their official stamp and seal, and then now I have to authenticate that that stamp and seal is official. Yeah, that sounds like
Mm.
you're duplicating work.
True, but there must be a reason for it. What's the
And I
reason
mean,
for it?
the reason is just that we become so accustomed to it and we never really questioned it.
No, but
So
I'm questioning it. No, there must be a reason for it. I mean, there is some amount of you guys are judges in effect. You guys are because you're under the
no,
judiciary.
no. So we are not judges, but with more training, like after 5 years, you can now become a lay magistrate, and then you become a, which is essentially now being a judge. So as a lay magistrate, you are um, you sit in the court of petty sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So you deal with small cases, you know, like petty theft or you know, some, yeah. It's not serious stuff like murder and sexual assault charges and things like
In
that.
petty theft is serious to me. Because my
Serious.
stuff gets stolen.
Or should I
This
say,
is,
it
yeah.
is something that you can adjudicate on,
Hmm.
you know, yeah, without very lengthy terms of prison sentence or anything like that.
True. But then you see, again, that's coming back to bringing it to the people. It's just that you guys are you are. I am more likely to see a JP than I am to see a RM or any other judge for that matter. And so you're part of that the judiciary that comes closest to the ground to us. I'm not saying that you're wrong per se. I would not disagree with you at all about the productivity trap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Um.
It's, yeah. So that's why JPs perform functions like mediation and mentorship, which is more community justice based. But for this now, in the context of business and getting things done, it's just that we became so accustomed to having JPs. Remember, JPs are they've been around for hundreds of years. Like we're
Hundreds.
talking
Correct.
about, yeah, we're talking about 1600s, and
Mm-hmm.
then the history of JPs and custodies is that they used to be what is local government today. So you know, like you have councillors,
Mhm.
that function, the function of councillors, effectively was performed by JPs back in the past and custodies. So they formed what was basically the parish council as it was back then. So they were always closer to the people. And then now you were seen as being a reliable person to go to. And then that has persisted for years to the point where JPs now, your word is your bond. That JP is the most honest person, and so he's going when he or she verifies something for you, it is because that person's word can be trusted. And so everywhere now requires a JP to verify something because of that trust. It could be a bank manager, it could be a pastor, it could be somebody else who holds a very significant office publicly. But JPs are seen as more universal, and incidentally, there's a shortage island wide. So that's why a lot of younger persons have been applying for it. When I did it, I was 23, and that is now the minimum age, and they removed the retirement age of 70, so you can serve beyond that because I think they want a ratio of 1 to every 200 citizens. And I think
Wow.
currently there's about 10,000 JPs island wide, but they're trying to double it to 20,000. So they really need people to serve.
Wow. All right. I mean, I love that. Sorry, like I said, I went down that tangent.
I didn't know it was that much, to be honest. I thought there were much less JPs.
Wow. Yeah, there
A
needs
lot,
to be a whole
yeah.
lot more than, yeah. Yeah, sorry to carry down that carry everybody down that tangent. But it was something that's in my mind. And even this, you said the productivity trap, it comes right back to the same thing that you were speaking about before, Keenan, which is the idea of why hasn't our productivity risen any meaningful amount since how many years is that now? 80? Not 80, 60 years.
Yeah, 50, 60 years thereabout.
60 years, yeah.
I wrote an article about it in the Observer. I was saying, what really is productivity? Apart from the fact that I don't think we measure it properly because a lot of persons don't know what they're measuring. So you cannot assess something that you cannot capture. So apart from measurement issues, our focus is really misplaced. So we tend to think of productivity as just get more done in the hour. But the large entities that have already achieved economies of scale, and both in the public and the private sector, they are already doing, they are already, I should say, the most productive entities. The World Bank did a study recently, this January, that Jamaica has a dual labor market. We have big formal entities that employ several hundreds of people, and we have many, like about 60% of all firms in Jamaica employ 20 people or less. So those are extremely small businesses that are often informal. And those businesses cannot really achieve the same sorts of economies of scale. So it is not for people who are working in the formal sector to be more productive. It is now for smaller businesses that are informal and many to get the requisite capacity building for them to be more productive, and also government assisted. Because when you look at data from Statin, for example, you find that and I did the calculations and I did the math based on the number of people who work in the sector against that's the article. The number of people who work in the sector as against the output value added of that sector. And so the most productive sectors are water and electricity, finance and mining. But water and electricity are very capital intensive. Mining is also very capital intensive, and both of those employ fewer than 10,000 people. So they are very highly productive for that reason, because returns to capital in Jamaica are generally greater than returns to labor. So we have a labor productivity problem, but capital is more productive. So any sector that is more capital intensive is going to be more productive automatically, and they employ the fewest people. Now at the other end of the scale, those that employ the most number of people, like agriculture, which is very big and not the most technologically sophisticated, wholesale and retail, transport, things like that.
Mhm.
Those
Construction.
employ, yeah, the accommodation and food, which is basically hotels, restaurants, and so
Mhm.
on. Your cook shop, all of those count as agriculture, accommodation and food. Those often employ, those are categories of business that employ fewer than 20 people per business. And just think about your typical cook shop experience or your typical small business experience. You know, you cuss and complain that people don't answer the phone, they don't respond to email, they don't do things like that. And that is where the productivity challenge lies. So it is sector specific and it's dependent on um, you know the nature of the business that you're doing. So we don't solve productivity by letting, say, people in government and civil service persons and persons who work in the private sector, financial sector, giving them more tasks to do, or getting them to have more deliverables or to produce more documents. That's not how you increase productivity. You have to now invest structurally in small businesses. They account for the largest portion of employment in the country, and it seems obvious that that should be the solution, because many you would not put investments where people already have the resources. You put them in the places that have the least amount of resources.
What would you say that investment looks like in terms of invest in small businesses? Like just
No, it's just capacity building. So it could look like training. It could look like equipping them with modern technology that would help them to get their operations faster. So it's really those simple things, right?
And this investment comes from who exactly? Meaning
If,
government or the people at the top or people, the owners of those businesses?
well,
Who is controlling?
government, and it could be supported by larger institutions as well. So government has different avenues for that. They have Jamaica Business Development Corporation. They have
DBJ.
yeah, they have DBJ on the
Mhm.
financing side, and then now they could work with the Small Business Association of Jamaica. It's things like that. But you see, I don't think that. I think because there are so many small businesses in Jamaica, it is hard to get to all of them. And anybody, it may not be that you're registered or your operations are formalized. So that makes it a little harder. And so um, I think that if we're trying to solve productivity, then we have to think about it more holistically. We really just have a fixation on, I am lounging around in my office and I may not have a task to do, but therefore I'm not productive. So you have to give me something to do, and therefore you are increasing productivity. But that's not really the case. You have to increase structural investments. It's about catalytic investments in small business activity if you
So
want to solve the productivity problem.
so I'm going to bring it back to bringing it down, breaking out for everybody. Weirdly enough, I don't know. Like this might be so obvious that to economists that it's not necessarily as obvious to everybody. What is productivity? Like if you think of a Jamaican right now who drives a taxi for a living or works on a site. Let's not use taxis. Works on a site, a construction site. How would you tell a construction worker what productivity is, and what it is, what they do in their life that is considered productivity? Like they're a 0.0000 whatever of GDP. What
So
is that?
So productivity for a taxi driver might look like how many passengers he can pick up in an hour,
Don't say
and
that.
then the
Don't say that.
corresponding period. So
So the reason I think I Randy didn't go to taxi drivers is
It's because of how much
they're
you can pick up
often
in an hour.
very productive. They're often very
Yes.
productive
I mean,
and often to our detriment.
Yeah, the
No,
white
but
people
then
play the more productive there.
I mean, you might look at it that way, detrimentally, but when you realize just how important um,
Yes.
taxi drivers are to the economy, and particularly the transport sector, you're going to see it, and we have seen it in COVID. Like in COVID, when people could not leave, right? A lot of persons could not be transported, or when taxi drivers go on strike, I should say,
Mhm.
and people cannot go to work,
Mhm.
then that has an impact on productivity. When you raise taxi fares by
But what
just
is productivity? Sorry to cut you again. What is it? Like if you
what
define it for a regular person, what is it?
it's just your output per unit time, or how much value you are creating over a particular period of time. So, if a taxi man, picks up 20 people in an hour, he's probably more productive or thought to be more productive than a taxi man who does 10 people in the same hour. And if you're on a construction site, how many bricks can you lay? How many block you can lay in an hour? Or, that might, it's something that is measurable. So, but then the problem, like, it goes back
So
to what I was saying earlier, is that sometimes we don't know what to measure. So, if you are in a corporate setting, for example, and I've always said that in an 8-hour workday, people tend to really get 3 to 4 solid hours of focused work. They don't. Nobody sits down and really works, or not many people, I should say, sit down and work for the full 8 hours.
So before lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, So over the course of an 8-hour day, if your thing is measured by tasks, and I you do all the tasks or 90% of the tasks that you are given, then you can be said to be very highly productive. But what if you are that those tasks only take you, like, let's say, 3 hours every day? Then the converse is that the manager might say, "Oh, you are not productive for the other 5 hours of the day."
No, here's a thing again, conundrum. I'm thinking it's a conundrum for like the 9 to 5 hour. So if I work for we have Lombard, if I work for Lombard Depot, right? As I work in the office at Lombard Depot, the finance office, my salary is my salary for the month. I get 200,000 for the month. If I work hard this month, I get 200,000. If I don't work as hard as I should, I still get 200,000, right? And I work how I work. So 200,000 a month. I'm getting 2.4 million a year. This year we broke all our sales targets. So Lombard Depot made more profits this year. Lombard Depot is one of the listed companies on the market. Have I been more productive or not since Lombard Depot made more profit this year? Is my productivity measured in Lombard Depot's revenue or profits, or is it in what I do? Because it's very difficult to know if I am good at what I'm doing from the econ perspective, since my income is what determines my economic output, and my income is the same whether or not I work hard, as long as I don't get fired.
Well, what you have presented is now the fundamental question that even the Prime Minister referred to it in his budget presentation. And it's that sometimes you will pay people regardless of how productive they might be. And there might be good reasons for that. So we have different social policy reasons why persons may get paid or not fired or not laid off. It's the same reason why, um, you know, performance in the public sector is maybe not as emphasized in as it is in other places. So regardless of how you work and whatever your contribution is, you still have a job and you have that sort of job security. And some of it can also apply in the private sector, because if it's harder to replace you, and you can't really get people who are more productive, then nobody's going to fire you regardless of your levels of productivity. The best we can do is just continue to work with you and hope that you improve it. So it just goes to show that I don't think there are very many places in the world where pay is exclusively linked and only linked to productivity, because it goes back to the measurement problem. Now you're going to say how you measure it, and let's look at, for example, teachers. Teachers, can teach students. They get results. Is it dependent on how many students get A's or B's or C's? And at the end of the day, I'm still going to be teaching the next class. But it is not a case where I can really assess your performance and then pay you according to your results, because there are other non-economic, non-market determined reasons why it is that people will still have a job. You know, it can have absolutely nothing to do with productivity or performance.
So then, okay, whenever I'm faced with that situation, as I've been in the markets, how I've managed it from the markets is I work backwards in, right? I invert. The actual GDP is what is measured in it. It's what are the big pieces of it? You said like our GDP, I noticed you said our GDP at over 3.5 trillion is really only paid by 1.4 million, is really only generated
Yeah.
by 1.4 million Jamaicans.
Yeah.
So what is that 3.5 trillion? What is making up that 3.5 trillion? In broad strokes, obviously.
Well, GDP is really just consumption plus government expenditure plus private investment plus net exports. So we already have negative net exports because we import so much more than we export. So that is already a drag on GDP. Most of what you see in that 3.5 trillion is consumption expenditure. So people buying, selling, they're spending money in the economy from their earnings, and that counts as GDP. Because government doesn't really invest much because capital expenditure is low, and private investment is not, it will never approximate consumption spending. So most of that you can safely say is because people are spending money in the economy, right? It's not as a result of, beyond just the skittishness of the private sector and their own risk tolerance. Most countries that are primarily service-based are going to have the largest portion of their GDP in consumption spending. And especially if you're a developed post-industrial country, so like the US, Germany, France, Canada, all of those places. But Jamaica is like that only because our services if you've attained a certain stage of economic maturity, then you're going to have more services than primary and secondary production, and that is where all of your GDP comes from. But for Jamaica, because incomes are low and our population is small, so that does not augur well for GDP growth. It's the same reason why a country that can be smaller than ours but have more higher value industries can have a higher GDP. So you only look at Barbados, look at Trinidad and Tobago, you look at you look at, well, I mean, Guyana is not physically smaller than us, but yeah, in population. And you look at Cayman, Bermuda, BVI, Turks and Caicos, all of those places have very high per capita GDP. And that's because more of their small population are engaged in higher value activity. And yes, a lot of it is in the financial services industry. But what drags us down is that a significant portion of our labor force are not engaged in extremely higher value skills.
Okay, so that brings us nicely, dovetails us into the market then. So if my productivity is linked to the sweat on my brow, my actual work, right, which I'm paid for, and it's easier to measure in people who are paid directly by what they do, then if I invest in stocks in addition to my 9 to 5, and let's assuming that you have a great portfolio, your portfolio is growing well enough, your portfolio is growing at a percentage higher than inflation, am I then increasing GDP? Am I then increasing productivity?
I wouldn't say so, because remember, total productivity includes productivity of capital and productivity of labor. When you invest your money in the stock market, you are getting returns to capital, right? Because it's not, your labor is not doing that work. So remember when I said that, generally speaking, returns to capital are often greater than returns to labor, and you see that in the stock market, because when people can invest a certain amount of money and maybe double or triple it or get whatever multiple of it, you can't. It is difficult to do that for wage labor, because year on year,
Yeah.
your percentage increase in wages will probably be, I don't think it reaches 10%. You maybe get,
Hopefully not. Hopefully
if
not.
you're lucky.
Yeah, hopefully not.
If you're
Yeah,
lucky, you get a 10% raise. And you look at that even in the context of the public sector. So public sector wage negotiations, you cannot go beyond a certain amount, because there are other considerations on the public side why you don't want wages to crowd out like spending on other areas. And so it's not a case where wages are going to be fully market determined or for economic reasons. It's just an exercise in management. So you are giving a percentage increase because this is simply the maximum that you can afford. If a company is making profit, well, and then we know that most companies are not going to really give you wages, an increase in salary beyond the increase in profit or revenue that the company made. But if a company made like 10% increase in revenue, maybe you get a 2% increase in your pay year on year.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So it's always constrained by the performance of the entity.
No, sorry. Going back, sorry, something just don't click to me. If I have my 9 to 5, same 200 grand a month, so I have a flat paycheck, but I invested my savings in a stock and it doubled, right? And you're saying that investment in the stock is not the same thing as me increasing my productivity, which would, if I were a taximan and if I carry the regular amount of people for the month, I get 200 grand. But if I carry double, then I get 400 grand. If I carry the regular amount of people, 200, double 400. But if not, if I carry 200 and I invest 200 and it doubles, those two don't clock as the same thing. I'll tell you why I'm confused. Because if I wasn't a taximan, if I was just a investment house and I invested in the stock market and it doubled and I took it back out, you would consider that to be a higher productivity.
Would it? No, I don't think so.
Of course, they said that the most productive stuff is the productive sector is finance, a large part of, like if there's a company on the market and all it does is invest in the capital and cash markets and it does so well and it takes that and it pays its workers, that's considered part of GDP.
I have to ask you on is that considered increased productivity? Or
no, remember that the financial sector, meaning the finance that you see there are people who work in the financial sector. So those are people who work like for finance houses or they work for large conglomerates, and they may not even have a financial role. It could be like they are HR officer or a supporting role or something like that. So it's not so.
All of the outcome that determines productivity, basically.
So what I've had here, like I explained it before on the article, where I'm viewing the article where persons, I'm not sure if they're seeing it on the space.
People on YouTube will see it, and I did share it in case anybody's listening, they want to follow along. I did share it on Twitter also with Brick Talk. So you can assume people are seeing it, yeah.
Remember, everything here, the numbers that I use, all of the starting data, that's labor productivity. So we're talking about people and their labor. So it's not what they have invested or their activities beyond that. It's just that I am a person. There are around 35,000 people who work in the financial sector, and collectively they produce a value of X. And so
and that X is the aggregate of their salaries?
Yeah, the aggregate of their earnings. You assume that most persons who work in the financial sector work formally, so it's easy to track that data because that's their value added output. So we're not talking about returns to capital, which is different. So if I take $10 and go and invest in the stock market and I get $200 from it, then that is my return to capital. But you could measure your overall productivity as your return to labor plus your return on capital. So that would then be called your total factor productivity.
That's what you mentioned that here. Do we do that? Is that like one of the official measures that we pay attention to, or we're more concentrated on labor? or you think there's more sense in concentrating on labor
There's
productivity?
there's in a sense more concentration on labor, but we do address total factor productivity. I mean, it's the value of everything. So also what the land produces, because land is a factor of production. So you have land, labor, and capital, and all of that, the productivity of that would now be considered total factor productivity.
So okay. So I can't get over it. I just thinking then, because the CEO of that firm, if their salary and all of their workers' salaries, like I said, 30% of the salary is linked to whatever percentage profit the firm makes this year. Any year they're more productive, the firm makes more money, they get a higher salary, they're considered to be more productive.
Yeah, overall. But then you wouldn't be able to compare that like for like with persons who are engaged solely in labor, wage labor, or salaried labor.
But it's everything, because we do compare those people to them. We talk about the taxi man and the taxi man carrying the exec in the back. The exec, both of them are on the GDP, on the econ level, they all filter down to being the economy, right? And everybody needs to increase their productivity, not just the people on the site. The site man and the taxi man work harder than most of us.
Yeah, but also in the same article, I had pointed to the fact that merely trying to get more, customers or more output, as it were. So, like the taxi man, if he carries 20 people instead of 10, that might increase his productivity in the short term, but there's a limit to the number of people that he can carry, right? And why you think about those limits, like for example, roads, traffic, and some things that are some things that are just simply out of his control. So if you want to increase productivity at a national level, it means that you need more structural investments. What I mean by structural investments, I mean that you need to change also the nature of employment and the nature of jobs that are available, because that's how you get higher value work. So, you compare persons who are in, for example, retail and wholesale. If a lot of those persons moved up to the higher value industries that I pointed out, which are like electricity and water, mining, finance, and it could be others as well that are not measured, then that is how you increase productivity. It won't be that you're increasing productivity on a national scale by just having more and more people spend their money on consumption items. It has to be that government does more investments critically. So I'll use a simple analogy. Prior to building the highway to Ocho Rios, right? When you think about the fact that people had to drive on flat bridge and they had to wait on a stoplight and then to cross over each way, that impedes productivity, because it's for such a critical thoroughfare from north to south, and there was no other real way of getting there. Imagine how much more vehicles now go to the north coast from the south coast as a result of the highway. So that's what we mean when we say structural investments in public infrastructure, in transportation, energy, water, and the biggest productivity driver that it can have overall is infrastructure development. And also crowding in private investment and government investment. But Jamaica has not quite been able to convert its period of macroeconomic stability into economic growth, because it has yet to attract those sorts of investments. So foreign direct investment, for example, outside of tourism, it is almost non-existent. You're not going to find other investors coming to Jamaica to say, we want to invest in this area, and a lot of it is down to education levels. So, the labor force is not equipped to take on some of this work. And we recognize that Jamaica's higher growth periods historically are because of those structural investments in the economy. So in the 50s and 60s, the nature of the economy started to change. It was not purely agricultural anymore. We started to have tourism, We started to have manufacturing coming in, and we started to have mining. Now that changed the trajectory of the economy. But no, that's almost 70 years old. You need newer, higher value industries that match today's realities and whatever goes on today. So things in like the blue economy, green economy, the purple, silver, orange economies, all of these newer um, industries are where begin to add value. And thinking about, like, for example, the late 90s, early 2000s, we had growth. We had growth of like 2 to 3% thereabout. But that was because, again, investments. A lot of hotels started to come on the North Coast. Um, the airports were expanded. Seaports were also expanded. Highway 2000 was already
Was
being
being
built,
built. Yeah.
and you had a lot of housing development. So it's not rocket science. Those also created other opportunities, but it's just that now I think we've sort of maxed out on many of those, and that's why we need like real industrial policy to take us forward.
So I think we lost you for a second, Keenan. Sorry, Keenan.
No, man,
hearing us?
I'm here.
Sorry, yeah. You're saying so that's why you need. Yeah, we lost you for a
Industrial
second.
policy.
No, man, I finished.
Industrial
it.
policy.
Yeah.
You didn't hear him, Randy?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, no, sorry, just because it cut. I thought it cut completely, but yeah, I heard him. So he said that's why we need real industrial policy to take us forward. Yeah, I don't know. I'll ask a question and maybe it won't bring us off track. If this again is a matter of just the measurement, like I do agree, like Highway 2000 has had a long tail effect on of economic empowerment, not just from the highway itself being built and employing people to build it and run it, but also the fact that it allows faster commerce and greater increased movement across the island. People can live further, which means that homes get built further out. But then I wonder, having had like that, like Highway 2000 is directly linked to that large scheme in Clarendon. The name is slipping me, but it's like the largest scheme in Jamaica. And I wonder though, if you put that as a number, because there is a number that can be put to it, is that number larger than the number that you have now? Because Highway 2000 now is a public company. It generates a lot of profit every year. It's paying out how much billion of that profit as it just announced to us today, because it is Trans Jamaica. The stock itself has, gone up by how much X? It's 698 today. And when it was sold by the government the first time to us, it was at 141. That was a couple of years ago. So you're looking on, I know you say it's capital growth, but you're looking on what, 4.25 in terms of how the number has changed. And it continues to grow and it continues to provide value. Now it's providing that higher level value along the finance side, right? The interest on the debt that Trans Jamaica holds pays many entities out. No, some might say that carries a higher value. It's certainly higher on the econ tier than maybe just the building of the thing initially. Do I have that right? Is that like a nice bringing it into how the finance side might be? It's still earning, but it's a higher class of earning than the physical labor. I'm trying to match it with your point about the employed labor force needing to upskill, because the higher up that ladder you go, the more productive it's seen.
Well, to the extent that highways, they convey more people, then you're going to earn more naturally, and then that is what increases productivity. But the fact that the road is built is not because it increases your productivity, but you could not have done it without the investment from government. You could not have increased that productivity on your own. Correct. Basically, because you can't go there and build your own road. You could not, and for all of your best efforts, you might still be stuck in traffic. even despite the road that is being built, which is why eventually we have to get to a point now where um, we have to solve that transportation problem because it impedes productivity now. So it had a good effect immediately after it was built because it could carry more cars right away. But no, we risk sort of slowing those gains if we don't solve that immediate problem where mass transit is concerned. So yes, it's good for the company that the company has more cars, and more throughput, and then they get more revenue. So that appears to be good from a company standpoint.
On a country
But
standpoint, I mean, isn't traffic is a side effect of economic productivity increasing, right? There's no poor countries with traffic.
yeah, it does. It does. It is one of the things that comes with it. But other countries now to maintain productivity gains, they have been able to solve it with mass transit. So, we're not contending with the same problems of yesterday, but now today's problems require different solutions.
But so then there's always that fight. Brings us back to Trans Jamaica. Mass transit, one of the best ones is the trains. And to get Trans Jamaica in, I think, 2001 or 2002, the government of the day signed an agreement to say that there won't be any trains that cross parish lines.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that's an example of something that would now be hurting greater productivity.
Yeah, I think it was because at the time, it's not like anybody could have foreseen just how worse the problem of traffic was going to get, where everybody is so car dependent. But had we had greater foresight, we would have been able to
I don't know if that's
have a
true. Let's
yeah,
about traffic.
Yeah, I mean, there
And
might
they
have
knew
been
that this would
traffic
happen.
roads. Yeah,
They knew
anybody
that this
with
would happen.
reasonable foresight. Yeah, anybody with reasonable foresight could have said, "Look, it's sort of like being a victim of your own success because now that you will have more and more cars as an example of say greater economic activity, you have to now plan to be less car dependent and more mass transit oriented. You're still conveying the same number of people, but in a more efficient way.
Well, all right, that's a different tangent, a different road that's going to go down because you touch the more people, and based on what you're saying in terms of what productivity is and what the economy is, what GDP is, one of the ways then that GDP can grow, if a huge part of it is consumption spending, then more people means more consumption, which is that then one of the side reasons why the Prime Minister is saying that we need more people in Jamaica.
Well, I mean, the fact that you have a low birth rate is and a small population, it's automatically a constraint on productivity. So you have to work on getting your existing citizens more productive if you want to substantially increase growth. So, like I said in the article, the average of every worker is about 2 million Jamaican, and that's used as a proxy for the
Per
average
annum?
wage.
Average
Per annum.
wage for every
like the average salary for everybody who works in Jamaica. So, and then that obscures differences. So obviously there are many persons who are earning way above that, which means conversely there are very many people who earn below that. So, but 2 million can mean different things to different people. But overall, if you're thinking about comparing it to other jurisdictions and what they make, let's say their per capita GDP is 80,000, ours is 8,000, 8,000 US. So if you multiply that by 10 and say, imagine what 20 million people, $20 million, I should say, looks like. It looks like people's quality of life would change overnight if they moved from 2 million to 20 million. So we are a small island and we're constrained by size. So it means that every single person who works, the 1.5 million persons who are recorded as part of the labor force and engaged in economic activity must be so very high valued and high skilled. And because it's not like
problem.
it's not like you're a large country. you're not a large country where you have the luxury of having larger swathes of your population now being more well, being less productive,
Be productive.
right?
You
You know,
don't have space for it.
yeah, you don't
Yeah.
have any room for it. Everybody who works has to be
Has to be
extremely high
extremely
skilled.
productive. Yeah, that makes a lot
Yeah,
of sense.
and it has to be extremely high skilled.
More
So
people
how
earn
does
more.
the population thing to jibe into that? Where if you increase your population now, then it does give you a little bit more breathing room.
Well, put it this way: Jamaica's birth rate, no country's birth rate is going to increase overnight, and this is just based on global trend. Every country that you can think of that has tried financial incentives to get people to have more children, it has failed, and I think that's just the general direction of the world. We got accustomed to, I think, abnormally high levels of population growth in the post World War II era because that was baby boomers, 1940s to 1960s. It is said that because obviously as many soldiers were away from war, thinking about millions of men now going back home trying to start a family, it's a population exploded, right? Them done fight war and them now say
Time
we
for love.
want to start a family. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is what happened, right?
Is
And
that why he
that's
went
why
into Venezuela? Don't answer that, Keenan. Don't answer
that
that.
is why baby boomers are still the largest population globally. They outnumber millennials, Gen X, and Gen Z because you have so much of them that are still alive. So um, that is why global growth, it grew right before you experienced stagflation in the 1970s. So for much of the 1940s, 50s, 60s, when people know you had reconstruction efforts, people went back into the labor force, and then you had people having children and then coming of age and starting to work. The global economy grew, but I think that was very abnormal. What we're experiencing now is a normalization of our growth, I think, relative to our resources. So what happened in the post-war period, you don't have wars. You have wars ever so often. That was a last major world war that you're talking about 80 years ago. And now, of course, with technology and modern advancement and development, I think we are
World is
at a
different.
steady state where population is concerned. So Jamaica is not really likely to buck that trend where population growth is concerned, regardless of the incentives that you give people to have children. So we can forget about that for now in terms of trying to increase our national income by increasing the number of people. And we ought to have been preparing for this because this is not exactly a new phenomenon. This is just the culmination of something that has been happening for the last 25 years. Birth rates were starting to decline in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's just that it did not become apparent. The reason it has become apparent today is because those persons who were having children back then, their children would now come of age and be entering the labor force. They would have just been now leaving university. But it's a case where we realize, oh, there are not many people anymore because people were not having children 20 to 25 years ago.
I mean, maybe if you align it with, that thing Buffett always say, Munger is actually who says it a lot about both of them, about giving the right, you do the right sort of incentive. Maybe if the government were giving, I don't know, giving a house. I know, Shay, that's one of your favorite topics these days. If the government were to give young people a house, if you're a young couple and you're having a child, you get a house.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, you can do those individual things, but it's not going to buck what is a global trend. Like
Well, it
Jamaica
can.
would have
Of
to
course,
be
it can. Not every
would have to
country
be
in the world
very
is.
special.
We are very
No,
special.
first-
Not every country in the world is experiencing a decline in birth. And what we have one of those weird situations that you mentioned before, right? We have technically, is a good question to ask. We have peak employment, technically.
Yeah, but you see,
Peak
those
is a
circumstances, we share greater circumstances where our demographics are concerned because the only countries there are granted there are some countries in the world that have higher birth rates. Many of them are in Africa. On average, the average child per woman is around 4 to 6. But everywhere else, it is below replacement rate. And I just wanted to make it clear that it's not that having a low birth rate is problematic. Most developed countries aspire to that. It's just that having
Do
it
they?
below the replacement rate, where you
Oh,
don't, is what is the real problem, because then it means that you will experience depopulation at some point in the future. So it's not having a low birth rate. If the birth rate was children per woman, then nobody would be complaining. But it's because it's less than that why people are complaining, because you won't be able to replace the population in the future. Beyond just like the fiscal implications of this and everything, Jamaica providing it's more than just financial incentives. There are other non-financial, non-economic reasons that are more cultural and sociological why people are not having children. And like I said, I think we have reached a steady state. I believe at some point in the past, I would say the world was overpopulated relative to its resources. And Jamaica experienced that. We experienced that in the 60s, right? Where we birth rates were very high. So Jamaica's birth rate
what
trend
happened?
tends to follow the rest of the world. That's why I said we won't really, buck that trend. What happened in the 1960s? The same thing that happened globally. People were having children, and at the time, unemployment was higher, poverty was higher, but the same baby boomer phenomenon that was a global thing also affected us, and so we followed the same trend up to the 60s. After the 1960s, you had birth rates really started to decline, and then going into the early 21st century, that's when the decline really set in. But also, it has been said that the decline in birth rate is also a result of the successful reduction in teenage pregnancy. So I don't know if it is anecdotal, but you don't quite hear as many stories, for example, of teenage pregnancy as you would in the past. So
Yeah.
that is also, which is why I said that I think we were overpopulated, because then you had, um, for example, uh, women of childbearing age who they were having children, but now, with increases in contraception, education, more attention to sexual and reproductive health, you're having people and couples making more educated decisions, and they don't have as many children at a stage of life that they cannot necessarily afford to take care of the child.
Or they think that they
But,
can't.
well, I mean, age is not. I don't want to say that age is an indicator of the ability to take care of a child, but if we attribute the reduction in the birth rate primarily to a reduction in teenage pregnancy, then
No, sorry, no. I never meant the teenage pregnancy point. I meant just generally, not not the teenage pregnancy point. I meant generally people think that they can't afford it, so they don't. Not the
Oh,
teenage pregnancy point. Well, my
well,
God,
yes,
sorry.
there's that. I mean, there's also the financial dimension of it. People can't really. Some persons just say, "Look, I can barely afford myself, so I can't afford a child," and
True,
they
true.
make that decision. And then, like I said, it goes back to housing as well. When we had that early part of the discussion, when I said that the middle class expanded during the 1950s and 1960s, and so you were able to start families. So you had a base. But now, if you don't have that base, then it is highly unlikely that you are going to start a family.
But you said the productivity in the 60s, 70s was similar to productivity now. So we kind of about the same, right? So it's kind of the same. But I want to touch a housing point though. Well, I guess if we're giving impossible things to solve, how can we solve it? What is the housing crisis now? Is there
What's the
young people
problem?
feeling
Yes.
that they can't own a home? What is the actual problem? Tell us, Shay, what is the problem with people not being able to buy houses now? Jamaicans specifically.
No,
Shay? I don't know
I
if Shay
think,
heard us. I mean, just
yeah.
as truant and Shay,
Yeah,
but
man, I'm here.
generally, like, what is the housing issue? What is
No, on the point of housing, there's several interconnected issues. So, for example, financing is not really the biggest issue in terms of trying to meet the need for housing. There's a capacity constraint that prevents um, the building of wide scale houses, especially for lower to middle income working class persons. And there's also just even thinking about um, availability of land. So obviously we know that Jamaica has land, but developing land for housing is the largest single cost of like creating a housing unit. And if you talk to the NHT, they will probably say that a lot of lands that are offered for housing are either agricultural or they're marginal. And so it's not really suitable. So that already presents a further constraint. Then you talk about now the supply side. Developers are not sufficiently incentivized to build houses at the lower price points because that means less money for them. And beyond just the unwillingness to do that, there's also the inability. If you put together all the developers, the contractors, the major construction companies, they collectively would not be able to build more than, say, 10,000 houses, if that much, in a single year, which then does not approximate anywhere near the demand that's needed, right? So that there are interconnected issues why it is then that housing has become such an issue. And then there's a case of misaligned incentives. So when the transfer tax was abolished, was lowered and stamp duty removed a couple of years ago, that's when we saw the construction boom happening afterwards. But as it is that where people are going to try to maximize on profits, they're going to build higher income residential places. And then we've even seen now where there has been a slowdown in that, where they're moving away from residential and into more commercial because you get more money per square foot for commercial. So people are going to try and maximize the opportunity where they can get it, and quite simply, developers will not go into residential, much less low to middle income residential. And so that presents a supply problem. But even we just also simply don't have enough builders. We don't have enough builders. There are also issues on, for the government side, not really for the private side, procurement, other things that go into developing capital infrastructure. But it is not a matter of a lack of financing, just as it is with non-housing infrastructure. The government's capital expenditure allocations often have to be returned to the consolidated fund because they can't exhaust it in a single year. And because sort of the money is there to spend, but if you have another ingredient in the equation that will run out, then it doesn't matter how much money you have. If I do not have the ability or the capacity because I don't have enough people to build houses, then I could have $100 billion. All of that is going to still sit on the table.
So is that really the thing? We really just don't have enough people to do the actual construction at the level for the type of cheaper housing that would be needed?
So that's one of the issues. But then the issue is compounded by the fact that since you don't already have enough builders, the few relatively low number of builders that there are naturally going to focus on types of real estate that will give them the most.
More.
Yes.
Yeah. But then so that's where government
Supply issue.
Well, I'm thinking that's where government incentives can come in, where if they incentivize like that middle market housing or down market housing, where if you're designing a house at X amount of square feet with a family of 2 to 4 at a price point below this, then the government will give you back, I don't know, $500,000 per unit or $1 million per unit, and give the family 1.5 on their market. That sort of thing where it's targeted. So I'm specifically incentivizing down market.
Well, yeah, that's where incentives need to come in. But first, government needs to actually have the capacity to train people so that you have enough people with the requisite skills that they can plug the gap and fill the demand. And they have been trying to do that, but I don't get a sense that the effort is really coordinated or at the scale that it needs to be. I mean, you'll never be able to train enough people in time to get all of the building that you need to get done. So everything, and because the government itself does not have builders or contractors, they are training people, but they all work for private companies. They work for private
Private sector, yeah.
developers. Yeah. So HART or any other kind of program can probably push out as many construction graduates in a year. Remember, you're limited by that ability in the first instance. So nothing else matters. It's like a car. A car, you can have all the parts of the car working, but if you don't have tires, you're not going to drive on the road because it matters so much, right? If your steering wheel is locked, you can't go anywhere. If your handbrake is not working or your transmission is not working, if the engine is not working but the lights are working, you cannot move the car.
So what's the solution then? I mean, not that you can solve it all, but if you could, what do you think the solution would look like? Could look like?
Well, it involves more training, and persons have been talking about importing labor. Now, on the point of importing labor, which you can do for construction, I mean, people pay for work permits to import people every year. I saw a breakdown the other day where we were importing in different sectors, but it has to be very planned and targeted, and it has to be easy for you to do that. So if construction companies need to import labor, then you have to probably make the process easier for them. So, for example, I was told that a work permit for one worker the other day is about 5,000 US. So if you need 10 people, that's already 50,000 US. You need more than that. You're paying millions of Jamaican dollars just to bring in these people. So you could make it cheaper, but you could also now make the process itself more streamlined and simplified, so that you're able to fill those shortages. And when we talk about labor shortages, a lot of the labor shortages that have been spoken about are in construction. So it's really sector specific. Some of them have experienced it in retail as well, but that is a different kind of shortage. People may not want to work for the wages that are being offered in that sector. But you would not claim even the financial sector has said that it needs better or more talent. But that doesn't mean that you are now going to import people wholesale kind of thing. It's just supposed to be a temporary, short, sharp, and targeted approach just to fill the exact need that you need to fill.
But if that need is a multi-year need, I say, looking at some of the YouTube comments, I say, try and say they should bring in some women as well. And I guess that's tied back to the woman's point of needing a larger population.
Well, when you bring in people, you're also probably bringing families as well. And there are other incentives to have people to work. But the point is, the fundamental point that I don't want us to lose is that you can't bring in people if the process is not easy. And it needs to be made easier for that to happen. Else, we're just going to continue to talk about it and not have anything done.
Wasn't that something recent addressed though? Around I'm sure that was something recent addressed.
No, we keep debating it, but it's very controversial because persons will say, why import labor when you can train people?
Okay,
and
gotcha.
you can do that. That it's not an either or. It just depends on the extent of the shortage. So if you can train people and you still have a shortage, you'd probably still have to import.
And the more immediate that you want the solution is, the more pressing the need to import is. You literally can't train.
Yeah, and I mean, it is not uncommon because most countries will import labor for construction purposes, right? If you want to build something that could not be built otherwise, and people migrate for that. I mean, the Panama Canal was not built by all Panamanians. You know, obviously, people know that Jamaicans went to build it. Other places that are being built when countries host the World Cup and they build stadiums, all of that labor is not sourced locally. A lot of it is sourced overseas. And most of Dubai, and when Dubai's transformation happened over the 1990s, all of that import labor was imported, and many of those persons are still there today. So, for construction purposes, Jamaica's situation is not unique. It just requires bold steps to be able to actually do it.
Which is official or professional speech for you need people to make decisions and not think about the political consequences of it, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, what I'm saying makes economic sense.
Yeah.
So in an international mobility of labor that I spoke to earlier, but that is not. There are political dimensions, which is why I said that you can follow the economics, but politics is always it's for policymakers. Policymakers and the political director determines policy. So they may not need to listen to good economics because they have other interests that need to be satisfied. So it makes no sense for us to talk about economic theory if in reality something else has to happen, because you have to take into consideration other factors.
And too often that's an issue, right?
I mean, it is problematic in a sense, because generally speaking, if your politics and your economics are misaligned, then nothing happens, right? So if it makes economic sense to build a road, but because of politics you can't build the road, then the road doesn't get built, people don't get good transport, and we're back to square one. So politics and economics have to be fundamentally aligned for projects and programs to take place.
Which comes back down to the people needing to understand the importance of something, so that when they see it, it doesn't shock us and have us act out politically in a way that hurts us just because it's a politically good point, right? Because I remember the first time I heard that point about Jamaica needing more workers, like they should import workers. And of course, like, what now? There's people out of work, but how many people check? And then I went and checked, and that's when I started, you see more about, that's when I got more into the idea of peak employment, which I didn't know that was a thing, but that's a thing. I think peak employment, they say, it's specific to countries, but like I think in the US it's 1.4 or it's 3.4 or something like whatever it is. Like we are lower, and we've been lower than it for a while.
So on the point of full employment, now Jamaica is notionally fully employed, in the sense that the people who are unemployed are persons who are, for the most part, right, not speaking for everybody who is unemployed. And unemployed here means that they are looking for work, but they can't get it. So they are participating in the labor force. They're part of the unemployed labor force. They're looking for work, but they can't get it. That is excluding the people who are not looking for work, and they have self-excluded themselves from the labor force because they decided that either they're going back to school, they're staying home, or they're migrating, or something of the sort. But for the people who are looking for work and not getting it, a lot of there is also another segment or sub-segment of that portion of persons who they are between jobs. So they are what you would call frictionally unemployed. So obviously, for everybody who switches jobs, you may not leave a job immediately and go back and go into your new job right away. Those persons are called frictionally unemployed, and those persons make up most of the 50,000 or so people who are who are counted as part of the unemployed labor force.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so Jamaica is theoretically at full employment, but it's because a lot of the employment that is made is relatively easy to acquire. So you realize our employment patterns sort of follow development of commercial real estate, and I had written about that as well recently, because when commercial real estate is built, you're
Mm.
accommodating offices, accommodation, retail space, warehousing, and it is in that segment of the services industry where most persons are being employed, because the largest addition to employment, and it's in the most recent article that I wrote, Randy, I think you saw it the other day, um, that and you had retweeted it.
Mhm.
So most of those persons now, as the buildings go up, those entities that rent them out are the ones that create the employment. So our employment prospects is really tied to heavily to construction, I would say, because it brings on new entities, more business names are being formed, more business names are being registered, and as a result, you immediately see the link between commercial real estate and employment.
I get you. So you see it, as maybe something that should be concentrated on, maybe incentivized.
Um, it's not really something that needs an incentive, because the fact is, when people, all right, so for a very long time, Jamaica's infrastructure was deteriorating. And
Mhm.
so you didn't really have commercial real estate being built at the scale that it is in the last, say, 6 to 7 years. So the incentive was already there. It's just that people need to find, um, they need to know that spaces are available and they exist. And so I can now rent out the space, or I can start the business or something. And then I don't want to say you need to incentivize it, because look at retail, for example. Yes, office spaces. When people need to have an entity and they have an office,
Mhm.
then they are the ones that they benefit, right? But what if you work from home, or what if you do mostly remote work? Then you don't need the space to do it. And so
Mhm.
it's the same thing with retail, because people, brick and mortar retail is slowly dying. So, and we know we had that debate with the whole tax on digital services and everything the other day. But just to say that, a lot of things are moving online. So if we know that a lot of our employment is tied to the development of commercial real estate, and then eventually things move online, then eventually the bottom of the bucket is going to drop out. And then it would not be beneficial for you to build more commercial real estate just because you're trying to get more people employed.
And that I won't press you on that tax idea yet, but it is feasible and needed, I would think, right? Isn't that maybe a foresight thing, where it is, as you say, seeing ahead, looking ahead, and realizing that if a lot
Well,
of my
the thing is, I don't think we're quite clear on what is being taxed, because um, if it's about products that you're buying online to competition, I don't think that's a persuasive argument, because a lot of the persons out there who sell things like clothes and other things, they are also buying it online. So then that is effectively double taxation, because they know it's going to be more expensive to them, and it's going to be more expensive to me, who is now going to try to buy it locally. So if you're talking about digital services, it cannot be that it applies to that. I don't think it would be, because that would not conform to the initial justification, which was that it's supposed to conform with the destination principle. So the service originates overseas, but you are paying for it here, right? The
Mhm.
destination. So something like Netflix, Uber, Amazon, none of
Mhm.
those things are in Jamaica, but we're paying for it out here. So therefore, it attracts a tax. And I think that is where it really applies, when you're consuming what are called digital services. It's not, I don't think it is a thing that you base on the level of fairness to local manufacturers, because it's not like you're really creating clothes and shoes and everything else that you use. You're not competing with a manufacturing sector domestically.
Mm.
So tax on that basis cannot be to equalize competition.
I get you. So you're not that you have a problem with it. You have a problem with the reason, at least initially, given for it.
Well, I mean, I have a problem generally speaking in this budget cycle with the imposition of the tax package, and I have made that known publicly because I didn't think that was optimal given the circumstances, and that's a whole other debate. Just thinking about the effects of taxation and what that means given present economic circumstances. So the principle makes sense, but the imposition of taxes is not something that I would agree with at this point in time.
I get you. All right. I don't want to keep you forever. We've been going for a while. So I'll say thank you. We do like to ask some market questions. I know we went all over the place. I didn't get to ask any. I know you say you tend to be very I don't want to say at arm's length to the market, let's say, but I mean, surely some of it, do you touch the market at all, or you don't invest in stocks, equities at all?
I mean, like I said, I can't publicly talk about specific companies, but I follow the market to the extent that it intersects with the macro. So,
okay.
For example, we know that the market generally is not where it was 5 or 6 years ago, and we know the reason for that, the monetary environment as it is. So, and I did write about it in that latest article as well, and it has become somewhat of a constraint where now you are relying effectively to survive it on individual company resilience. So it's not like market conditions are now at a place where a rising tide is going to lift all boats. So when the market does well, everybody does well. When it does badly, you're only going to find that the fittest of the fit will survive. And it is because when things were good, or when financing was cheap, and it didn't take a lot to attract that capital, then it's easy for people to do well. But now the tide has receded, and you find that a lot of companies are exposed. So they won't do as well when financing becomes more expensive. Yet you will always have a need for financing, regardless of the cost. But so companies have had to become more strategic in how they plan for it. But then it also means that they probably delay some plans for expansion and other things that they would do on a capital side. Most companies are just trying to weather the storm and hope that rates start to come down very quickly. But now that situation is complicated by the war in the Middle East, and as well as just general geopolitical concerns everywhere. And because inflation is just always going to be a risk, the policy posture of the US administration now is also a risk in terms of tariffs and so on. So, like I said earlier, I think the world has changed, and it's not going to go back to what it was prior to COVID. And you have to prepare now for a new normal. And how soon could we see rates go back to 0.5%? I really can't tell.
When were rates at 0.5%? Remind us, around, not the exact date, obviously.
Between 2019 and 2021. So for those 2 years, was consistently at 0.5%. And just nationally, so beyond just company specific benefits to the company, I'm thinking about the benefit to the economy, because I think fiscal policy did a lot of the work of growth over the last decade, right, in terms of some of the investments that the government made. But I think there's a room for monetary policy. So remember that we only experienced 2 years of historic low interest rates, and then COVID hit us. So in fact, it wasn't even 2 years. It was August 2019. It was lower to 0.5, and then by less than 6 months, COVID hit. So we never really got to see the full potential of the accommodating monetary environment, really, because then rates just, we now knew that rates had to go up afterwards. So we have not seen a very long and sustained period in the Jamaican economy where rates are attractive and capital can now be really freed up going forward. Because monetary policy, it's pretty straightforward. It's not like fiscal policy, which needs to be creative, but it can be powerful as an engine of growth. And I think we have sort of exhausted the fiscal policy side, because now it's like, apart from the rebuilding efforts, we are running or projected to run fiscal deficits for the next 3 to 4 years. So your room is constrained. So it cannot be that you constrain yourself on the fiscal side and then constrain yourself on the monetary side. One of them has to oppose the other. And I think that you know by trying to make capital more attractive, you can kickstart recovery much faster than you probably thought you could have.
So I take it then that you're a fan of the junior market then?
Like I said, I don't really follow either of them.
Well, I mean,
very
fan
much.
of the junior
The
market
concept,
from
the concept.
the concept,
concept.
meaning it is an incentive from the government where it eases tax on for a few years for the companies that list on it, and of course it encourages by listing on it you have to go for wide ownership. You have to do an
Yeah.
IPO. It has to be in Jamaican dollars.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good model, and that is a good premise to operate off of, because to the extent that you can encourage companies that coming to market with just that little tax break, then you hope that they flourish. But then no, it has to be sure that they will reach a level of maturity that justifies the investment. Because remember, giving up those tax revenues means something else on the other side, where there's an opportunity cost. So the companies have to do what they have to do to now ensure that they're making the best use of it.
I get you. I believe they measured it and they say it is tax positive, though. It took a few years to get tax positive, but it is tax positive.
Yeah.
The junior market. All right. Well, Keenan, I don't want to keep you too long. I mean, thank you. You're definitely welcome to come back, and I definitely
You can carry the show.
Yeah, you carried it heavily, but I like that. I like that you have a lot of
A lot to say.
a lot to say and a lot
ideas,
of in depth
Yeah.
in areas that we don't always touch, and take maybe a future point from you. Looking from a macro perspective, what broad-based industries do you see in Jamaica as having the smoothest road for, let's say, the next 10 years? Like, it's probably this industry, this area that will grow greatly.
10 years. Wow.
10, yeah. You can go shorter if you want. I know.
Well, I think anything that is new that can come to market. So I think that the creative sector, for example, might do very well. It has been doing very well over the last couple of years. I want to say that transport will be one, and energy, but there's always a risk, of course, with our current fuel dependence. To the extent that we can reduce that, I think there are opportunities in transport. And I don't think, generally speaking, that people can go wrong with things that are linked to real estate. So real estate and finance. So
finance.
You would be surprised.
yeah, there are always anomalies, but if you're thinking about the very long term, then that might be a stay for a bit.
So you say transport is one, and again, funny enough, as I said, infrastructure around transport is not the largest company on the market, but the most popular company on the market.
Yeah.
Finance companies are actually the largest companies on the market, and I don't think that's stopping anytime soon.
I think that's just the nature of the industries we have there. There are industries are still very traditional by definition. So you're always going to find that they will have pride of place, and persons who have been in it long enough, I think, have an appreciation of it and can reasonably predict how well it will do.
I get you. And of course, there's energy. So if we find oil, we definitely have we don't have the, what you said, the resource curse. We should be good to go, right?
Well, let's see what happens with where that is concerned. Oil is really more a case of management than it is the actual wealth that derives from it.
I get you. All right, so I like it. The creative sectors, transport. Thank you. I won't press you on that too much then. I say you can't speak to specific companies to that invest in, so that's fine. But thank you very, very much. I don't want to wrap it all up. I don't know if, then I asked 2 other questions that you had. Shay, I know you've been quiet. I don't know if you have any questions you want to ask Keenan before he goes, or you guys are good. You're good. And I-
Kina, is that you can't speak publicly to them, or you just, well, we say you can't speak, what do you mean?
No, I mean, given my affiliation with companies and work that I have done for consulting for some companies as well, it would not be appropriate to actually
speak to them.
disclose those things publicly.
Right.
So that's why
Okay.
I speak on the general industry and macro, but like specific companies, would shy away from.
I say
Okay.
basically, if we see Kina at a bar, have a good conversation.
Yeah.
Then how do you say you invest generally then? Generally, like when you go about looking for an investment, what do you look for?
Well, for anything that is, like I said, I don't do it actively, but if
That's
I
fine.
had more time to dedicate to it, I look a lot at management, and I think management and leadership, it outweighs the present position of the company. So once you can be assured that the company is in good hands, even if the financial aspect of it is not doing very well, then I think that's a safe bet. And I also think that companies that if you play a very long game, so you have to be able to tell what the worth of a company is, its book value, and whether it's trading above or below. What is the potential for that company to get better? So you cannot be too skittish as an investor, where you jump at every single market signal and you're not able to weather the storm. So you really have to, investing is always a long game. Long meaning not even 10 years, beyond that, right? So people are too willing to give up equity that they have acquired just because of episodic or idiosyncratic factors. So you can't be too jumpy where that is concerned.
As a Dolphin Co shareholder, I agree with you. But thank you, Kieran. Shay, I don't know if you have any, or you can let Kieran go. I don't want to keep him too long. He did tell me that he had to leave soon.
Shay, you're not. No voice.
No, we're not hearing you at all, Shay.
Yeah, you have to be able to differentiate between shocks that are structural, like at the core, and things that are just idiosyncratic.
Yeah,
I agree.
I like that. Yeah.
Trust
So like
me, I
him
agree.
have a lot of NCB shares, I'm just waiting.
No
Just waiting
comment.
out the storm. Just waiting out the storm. All right, Keenan. I'm not sure we're gonna get Shay, but thank you very much. We will want to have you back. Thank you. I'm always happy to hear the view, and
Best of
I
luck
can't
going to
thank
the
you
show.
enough. Yeah, man. So,
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the conversation. Thanks so much for having me, and all the best. We can definitely talk another time.
no problem.
Would love that.
All right.
Definitely.
Thank you, Keenan.
All right.
Kenan, best of.
Yeah,
enjoy
man.
the
Thank
weekend.
you.
All right. So, guys, wow. Not what I was
Are you
expecting, but
still not hearing me?
we're hearing you now, Shay.
Yeah, we're
Yes.
hearing it loud and clear.
Yeah. Wow. Boy.
Well,
What was
what
it,
I
Shay?
was saying is, I was the line that we started to go down towards the end is kind of the line that I'd want to go down with Keenan. So I hope he is on again. In
Yeah. When he said that thing, I figured it might have been like legal things. So I never
Yeah,
wanted
man.
to
Yeah, I
press him on
figured
it.
that.
Yeah. I feel
But
illegal.
not just I don't even mean about specific companies really.
Same.
I wanted to hear about his investment style and why he doesn't invest heavily. Because in my mind, he would be the one seeing the whole board.
Bro, that's the thing that always confuses me with them. Like they have
That's
the,
why I want. That's
the
that's why I
macro
want to go down that
knowledge,
road.
the
And
macro knowledge of like you remember what was it 2 weeks ago we were talking about PB Scott and Epley and the whole like being able to see the vision of that thing and okay the highway, but you need the highway, you need the people, so you need a highway to bring the people there. You need it cheap, so you're
Yeah.
not going to have it in New Kingston, you have it in Spanish Town out by Angels. That sort of
Yep.
macro view, you look at that and you should be
Exactly.
like, yo,
Mm,
like we weren't
You
surprised
see
that
the whole
that
board.
I
Dr.
like that you
Clark,
brought it there, Randy, because
yeah,
my thought was I thought when I heard you speaking of that this sounds one Dr. Clarkish, and two,
yeah,
I think Keenan would be. My other thought was he would make a great employee because my thought around it was when it was made like productivity and like investment from a business side. What I thought of was this would make like the whole ideology would make something that's something close to government with also private sector with a lot of money and just determining how we can put money towards this structural issue in Jamaica. So it's like change the whole culture, change the whole face of what business and how they operate. Like there could be business that work with the government on some level. I don't know who pays them, either the businesses or whatever, but at some level,
public-private
we
partnership.
look towards
Yeah.
okay, we want to change the face of how business operate in Jamaica, and this is
Yeah.
the service we provide to them. And my thought was, put Keenan aside a lot of money and just make him look at certain things, and then a team decides on where exactly how we invest accordingly.
A lot of
How we can
patience.
do
A
this.
lot of patience.
So somebody sent this episode to PB Scott and we can resume and see what happens.
Yeah. A lot of patient capital, I think, would do well with that sort of view because again, being able to see some of those long things that and wait out some of those long things. Like he's talking about the whole, not being thrown off by something happening just now.
Because I think you have the same thing. When you hear certain things, you start thinking of how business can do this, right?
Yeah.
And my thought around is this couldn't be something that I call Randy and say, we can make a business. Okay, it takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of money that's going to wait.
Yeah.
If
Can you burn 10 years worth of money?
This might just be a loss for a very long time.
Yeah.
What we really want to see is Jamaica change, and it's going to be it's going to return well at some point, but can you without that stuff? I know my kind of money that right now.
That's all right. Yeah, take 10, 15 years, and in year 15, you might break even. That might be the first year that the business breaks even, but that's the year when you get it, right? You take that sort of long vision, that's leeching paying for, I don't know if it's known. It's not like I think was linked to Columbus. So like the Columbus networks, the fiber line coming to Jamaica.
Yeah, man, what are you talking about? Yeah.
He's linked in that. Can you imagine that? Because hey, if you're gonna finance, the best finance is soft. So the country needs better internet. So imagine those years that you're making that sort of bet on something for years without seeing the money back. Like, how does that go? You're certainly not seeing a profit. If you're lucky, you might see cash flow, but you're certainly not seeing a profit. Again, on the leeching point, leeching paid for math, NCB, but leeching paid for math for all Jamaicans for a long time. I want to say decades. Decades. Like to the point where people don't even know. It's not even really said. They don't even know that, there's a reason why the CXC fee don't have no fee on math. There's a fee on it. It's just that NCB just paid it for everybody. Imagine doing that because you own the bank there. You're going to need people who are good at math. Yeah, it's a different vision that it takes.
One thing I really see is the passion. It's not just I do economics. It's it's what I like. It's what I do. And the ability to just actually talk about it from because that was this mention he wrote the tangents, bro. And he had a point on every single one of them.
Everyone.
So that was real to me.
I didn't want to get bogged down. Somebody that make sense to me, somebody that I know can't write, bro. Because if
somebody think that I don't know. One, I don't know if I fully understand his full point there, and also the maybe I don't necessarily agree fully on it, but that's fine.
I mean, like some of the fundamentals, like if if part of my pay, if my pay is reflective of my contribution to GDP, and if part of my pay is linked to the performance of certain investments in certain markets, then then that's part of GDP, right? So then it helps everybody. But again, I'm sure that's a deeper thing. But I just thought it can't. There must be there, right? If when I make more, I can buy a car. Well, if I put if I put 2 million in Trans-Jamaica years ago, I know it's at 7, and I take it out and I buy the car. Well, I mean, yes, it's growth of capital, but
it must be. You say it must be captured in some way.
yeah, and it must be part of GDP. Sorry, again, if your work is what is captured via your payroll and your consumption, and that your work is dependent on your pay from this entity, if this entity earns from that thing, then that thing must be part of GDP.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, but damn, I'm happy it never got too in the weeds either, because of course, you know, it can go with economy. So I like that. Hopefully we'll have more of that in the future. I like a different view. I like a view of the same thing that we look at in different ways. I don't think it's any simpler.
I got earning season vibes when we were, you know, how about some of those interview. I got that.
Yeah. Did I want that something like that too? I share you're quiet for most side, but that I minded, but I did want to bring in, but I bring in on something because you're one of the first people I say they shouted out on YouTube. Where is it? I think it was the same Tryon who asked how you feel about the Trans-Jamaica dividend, which is why it was in the back of my mind.
Oh, I didn't see.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm not seeing it now either, but I know he had
um,
asked it earlier because it was one of the very first things I'd seen on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So, how you feel about the Trans-Jamaica, the
Oh,
people's stock, the big dividend
people's
announced?
great. I kind of don't care. It's kind of a checkbox, kind of.
Well, what a box to check.
It's a checkbox. I can't check my box now.
Yeah.
I can't check my box.
Yeah,
I
but I
can't
mean,
check my
you're
box.
talking like the whole game done for you, though. I mean, are you not excited
no,
about?
it's just yeah, of course. It's just how I am generally. It's a part of something. It's one of the steps.
Okay, I get you. I'm with you
Yeah,
there.
it's one of the steps.
I'm with you there too. Yeah. It's just I was
So
looking at
yeah,
it.
all right, great. So it's kind of okay, great, all right.
It's not kind of okay in the
We're
world of
moving
dividends.
along.
In the world of dividends, it's the third best this year. Right now, it's the third biggest, I should say. The third biggest this year, 2.36% yield. So it's smaller than the dollar dividend, though. Wow. And of course, the same Epley dividend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very interesting with the dollar thing, right? Although I don't think who knows if dollar will do more than one this year. If dollar does more than one.
What was the yield when on the other dividends when they were given? What was the yield?
Which ones?
The previous dividends.
Trans-Jamaica, I mean? Sorry, which company?
Yeah, Trans-Jamaica. So the last year dividends. What were the yields when they went off them when they were put out?
That's a good question. I'll look it up and see. Oh, they've been paying dividends since what? 2021, I think. I'll tell you in a couple of minutes. So tell me what you're thinking while I run it.
Oh no, I just want to know if I just want to compare the yield today to the yield then. If the yields are better or lower or same.
Or same. I want to say what do you think it is? I'm looking while I look it up. What do you think it is? You think it's better?
No, it's like I guess.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, we're going to guess anyway. That's what the market is. So,
but I don't like guessing about things I don't have to guess about. Which was I was saying earlier. I do not like I don't like playing uncertainty for the sake of it.
I get you. Let me tell you.
But I would say I would think it's. Yes, I think it's smaller. I'm guessing it's smaller.
You're guessing that the overall yield is
Either
smaller.
smaller or say, or either smaller or just very
Maybe
close.
like about the same.
I think it's larger. I'm thinking it's larger. Whoa. Actually, I don't know. Smaller, yes. Definitely. Yield is such a good one. Yeah, smaller. I think it's smaller. I'm just trying to make sure I get every year from, let's say, 2019, 20, 21, 22, all the way up.
Okay, smaller.
It'll take me a moment to get it. So I'm not in the way that you want. I have to do a certain thing that I'm not sure. So like what the yield is at the time, yeah, versus like the last time when you could get it. That's going to be interesting to see. While we find that, I see Tav is on. I'll bring him on. We should have the answer soon. All right. Before you talk, Tav, let me give Danai the answer so we don't get distracted again with that. Yield change over the last few years. I ran it from 2019 Danai till now. I don't know if you can see this, but so the yield in 2020, 5.85, 21, 6.6.
How much
20
interest are giving you those times? Is it two or is just two? Or just
it was one until
One.
one a year until 2024
2025?
or 2025. One of
2024.
them, yeah.
Yeah,
24,
yeah,
25, they
last
went
year.
to 2. Yeah.
2024, yeah.
So 5.85% yield in 2020, 6.6 or 6.7% in 2021, 5.9 in 2022, 6.4 in 2023, 5.63 in 2024, 6.35 in 2025. And right now we only have one, and it's 2.36.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, right.
Double that.
And
That's 4.72.
I note that the yield on the first dividend last year was just 1.8%. The yield on the first, so the the usual Q1 announcement last year was 1.8.
Mhm.
Well, 1.8
good
at
Q.
current prices. 2.36 at current prices. So yeah, it is very actually interesting. What are you thinking there, Danai? And the man them still balling about the money and probably still has sue government for the rest of the tour. Yeah.
I'm
Also,
thinking
yeah, go ahead.
the yield is lower, but I know we're one of the few that calculate the yield, so I don't know the people will be more shaken. And two, I think that point it just said might hit triple platinum around. Oh, maybe the first one is smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, man, and that it might just be a point for somebody to take a good dose of opium and say, okay, the next one will be bigger.
Well, I mean, I
And
do think the next
you
one
can
will be
continue. Yeah, man, but I think it'll be a good thing for religion to continue.
Yeah, no, the Trans Jamaica Church does not stop rolling.
More deep.
Yeah.
Congregation.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we have Tab on. That's our Tab set a speaking request. So, guys, we're not gonna stay on all night, and we had Keenan for most of the night. So, if you want to talk to us, send a speaker request right now, and we'll go through them. So, Tab, what's up? Tab look like him come on and come back off. All right, until him come back on. So, then I share. I mean, market ideas, market thoughts so far.
Big whole dirty NTB trade now week, bro. What?
What was it?
Cheers.
I was just minding my business, man.
Things I use a share.
Should I try?
No, it
Try
wasn't me
raise
this time.
productivity?
I do what I can.
Oh boy, massive NCB trade, 22.2 million. in a single day. What was the actual trade? What was the actual
Okay.
trade? What day was it, Shay? Thursday?
No, wouldn't. It was earlier in the week. Maybe Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, Tuesday.
I think the 17th. Yeah, the 17th. March 17th. massive 22 million at $43.51. Wow.
It was interesting to see. Because
Wow.
what?
He
What do you
doesn't
think
pick up all the trades of the day, no?
Yeah, well, nothing
Money
else.
is
Yeah, nothing
Okay,
else.
look at the
no.
thing. Nothing come close.
Yeah, nothing else matters. Look at that. So the price that day, everything else matters because the price for that trade was $43.51,
right.
and the it closed that day at $43.50. So everything else you got to matter to the
Fine
tune
line.
of 1 cent. What do you think it is? 22,
And then back
22%.
to 42 again.
Back to what do you mean in terms of the next day? Very next day?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
43.39.
And today.
43. And then back to 42. What do you think it actually is? 22 million units is how big a stake for them? It's almost top 10 stake.
Yeah, man, that heavy.
Almost top 10 stake. What do you think happening?
I have no idea.
You know what I wonder if it's linked to? I wonder if it's linked to
Cornerstone.
no, yeah, I just I tried to make sure I thought before I spoke. I never even thought of Cornerstone, but it could be, couldn't it? It could be linked to Cornerstone. It could be linked to Barita.
Mhm.
March is the end of their quarter. It could be linked to many things. So I was actually thinking like a lot of noise was made about the last bond payment with Michael Leach in his personal debt, and I often point out that it's not all of the debt that was paid, right? Meaning that whole thing really spoke to a set of bonds and a set of payment, but it's not done. There's still debt and there's other payments to be made, right? I think the news cycle has moved on, but here we are a quarter later.
Yes, sir.
Here we are a quarter later, and a few days before is it before the end of the quarter? A few days before the end of their quarter, you see an amount moving to the tune of
$1 billion.
is that billion? That's what I wanted to check.
900 and something.
So call it $1 billion. 900 and something million. Wow. But then again, the debts, the remaining debts are so much bigger than just that.
Yes, sir.
Rich people problems.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, 962 million party rich people problems. I mean, whoever it is well, whoever gets it is lucky, right? You asked me if I wanted 22 million worth of NCB shares. I'm saying yes every time. So hey, that's never have to work again money if you do it right.
Yep.
Wow.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's funny, Shay. You remember when you were playing around with NCB last year? 22 million shares. Were there days when 22 million shares traded? There were days. I mean, I know definitely over a series of days, definitely. But
I feel like the volumes on those
days. Yes, I just thinking.
on a
Imagine
bunch
if
of those days.
yeah, imagine if somebody accumulated during this time. 30s, in the 30s and the 20s. That's a strong little accumulation point, December 19, 20, 25, 39. And again, small gains on a massive number like that. 5% profit. Imagine if that's sold at 5% profit at 43, 10% profit. Ooh. I was happy to hear about somebody making it. I think that's
The
helping
price
GDP.
was a part of the surprise on it, to be honest. The price, because I was like 43. How much? 51 or something?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of high.
That's a good point.
Kind of high.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. That might be a leading point.
Mm-hmm.
That might be a lead. I might bring you back to my point. If you're right, it is kind of high especially for that many. You can name a price. You're moving that kind of shares, but maybe it behooves. Maybe it's maybe it's in someone's best interest if you have if you move you maybe you clear $1 billion or 900. You add some money to it, you clear $1 billion that way.
I can go and buy it for cheaper tomorrow or Monday. I could have bought it for cheaper than that today.
So
I was
a very
like,
interesting point.
That's kind of high.
Also, it depends on who owns those shares now. Are they interested in ensuring that it ends March higher than they paid for it?
Exactly. So my thoughts are around those kinds of things. Why are we buying there? How come we're buying at 43.50 something when it's been consistently touching 41.40 and them something there?
I hear the striker. Yeah, I hear the strike. I mean, 4 million moved in at January 29th, and that was at 40 flat.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it's too rich on my blood, but if you can stand the risk, that's not a bad. That's not if I'm reading what you're saying right. That's not a bad thought. I don't see shit. I don't see it have come back hard. But again, anybody wants it,
I think he said he said he wasn't on.
He said he wasn't on.
I don't know. I think he said he's not on. I don't know.
If anybody else wants to, otherwise, I mean, fine. I don't mind. I really like the conversation that we had.
I mean, there's a nice surprise for you, specific Randy. I know you love this one.
What's that?
Sagicor APO.
I saw the post before. I saw the post before.
You watched the video. That's okay. Comment.
I didn't watch it either. It was when we're on with Keenan, so I couldn't see it. But I'm assuming that with headline journalism being what it is, that it is Sagicor saying that they're gonna do the APO.
Yeah. With Khalila's show. So breaking news, I think.
Big up Khalila.
News.
Yeah, big up Khalila.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, for I guess breaking that. Let's see if something that I can show and share here.
Breaking news.
All right.
Which would be one of the largest financial groups in the entire region. Where does that merger stand now? Like, what progress has been made since the announcement?
You guys can't hear? You guys can't hear. I'm so sorry. So
Devon said YouTube, couple million sold around 39. Yeah, so
consistently, so 43 is a crazy amount. Yeah, and when you think about the amount of unit, that's a game where those small numbers aren't very small, right? Yeah, those small numbers aren't very small. I wanted to play this, but thanks for reminding me, Danai, that everybody can't hear. Yes, the people on YouTube can hear. but everybody else can't hear.
Oh,
Yeah,
gotcha.
so
It makes sense. Space. You're right.
yeah,
Mhm.
so people on the space can't hear. What was
Yeah.
being said?
So
That I
post the
remember.
signing in December, the
you
team
want-
is hard at work
I
across the Caribbean. There'll be a
Okay.
scheme of
I
arrangement
jumped on this,
which
I
will be
saw
led by the Jamaican
somebody
courts
shared it
and
on
a
the-
shareholder meeting.
Actually,
The regulatory filings are being prepared. We're going to be doing an
All of it.
APO to
Alright.
raise
That's
capital to do the
Pretty
merger.
much he said that. Pretty much he said. I'll say for everybody who's hearing on the space. So he being Chris Zaka, who's the head of Sagicor, who runs Sagicor now, says that CEO Chris Zaka, saying that with the merger that Sagicor, we know Sagicor is having, with the other side of Sagicor in the Caribbean, so they're gonna have pretty much a scheme of arrangement to turn it into the true. So it's not just Sagicor Jamaica now. I guess it's Sagicor the region, the Caribbean. And then he said, and again, I'm going off what he just said. He
And
said
that
there's
is being
going to
worked
be
on. So all the
an
steps are
APO. So they're gonna have a scheme of arrangement where you usually have an exchange of shares. An easy example of a
Mhm.
scheme of arrangement. We've had a couple. Mayberry did one. NCB has done one. Yeah. So we take this much shares in the company and give you this much shares in a new company. But he's tying that to the APO. His words, the APO that's going to be done.
steps are in train. We're aiming for a fourth quarter close, at which time we'll have one legal entity called Sagicor Group
At which
Caribbean.
point they'll have one.
So that
called Sagicor Caribbean.
Cool.
I know the people in the Gora group shouldn't be surprised if this is going from. I think people who listen to Brick Talk probably shouldn't be surprised. I think we have hinted at seeing it a long time. Kind of clear that they're gonna do that. Why do you think it's being done? You guys have any idea?
Good question.
No idea. Any guesses?
No, not yet.
Ask the question another way.
Why are they doing? Why are they doing that? Why are they doing the
Why
merger
they
and
raising
all of
money?
that? I wouldn't even. I was even putting the money raise in there, but that's actually also a good question. Why are they raising money? Yeah, I think maybe it's linked to. I think maybe it's linked to the same capital adequacy requirements, managing the risks a certain way. I mean, it's a bigger entity. Sagicor Caribbean. I think it's linked. I think it's linked heavily to capital adequacy, maybe Basel stuff, and a chance to get money. Why not? And I suspect. Well, the girl group people know the lines that I've mentioned this along. I see them shouting out the selector, and I think those two things are linked, obviously. Sagicor doing what they're doing. Funny enough, I expect Barita to do the same. I'm surprised that Barita hasn't done theirs yet, or maybe Sagicor just move ahead of Barita.
Yeah, that's funny. Yes, I think that's what's happening. I think they're preempting him, but we know Barita, I think, going from a while now.
Yeah, I think it might be the same sort of thing, right? So merge up, new entity, bigger entity, also APO in the midlight.
APO it.
Yeah, to raise cash too. Faster horse. Faster horse. That's funny. So who next? I don't think there's anybody in that same exact kind of situation. Maybe acquiring other things. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's a timing thing. So maybe you'll see GK and GKFG. Yeah, you might see GKFG doing that one. I'm excited about. If they
right.
Yeah, if they do it right. Correct. If they do it right.
Would the APO as far as I can think.
But you know what? I'm not even thinking about them. I hope they don't. But I wasn't even thinking about them along the APO lines at all.
I mean, the GKFG would be a new listing, so it wouldn't be a. it wouldn't be
True.
an APO.
Perish that thought.
True. Hopefully that, yeah, true. I love the GK. You have your GK group, your GKFG, your GK Foods. It'd be nice to have all three, as three separate things that can individually be owned. Anyway, it sounds like we heard Phil a while ago. Phil, how you
Good
doing?
time still, yes, sir.
Yeah, man, I'm there. I was going to say the same thing there. Maybe it's a capital adequacy thing with the combined entity.
I think so. If you think about that speech from the NCB Cap Market CEO Young at the start of the year, talking about entities consolidating and fewer entities so that they're bigger entities, big bank, little bank. He didn't say the last part, but generally, that's sort of thing. So maybe this is part of what we're seeing, part of what you'd see, the hints that we're seeing.
Yeah, man. Maybe. But yeah, man, them can go on. It's inevitable. It is what it is. We'll see how them try to season the pot. As long as them run the JC fees, are good with it.
It's not like you give up, like you expect the APOs and no help from them, right?
APOs and what?
No turning back. It's a new way forward. Screw the share price. APO
Yeah,
done.
them. If the company them no business, we can't help them, bro.
That's true.
What am I there try get to them position, yeah?
Yeah, try to help yourself, you know?
I try help myself.
Yeah, it's a new thought, bro. You're trying to help grow GDP.
That's right. I like it.
Yeah.
But it was a nice variation, a nice like then I say more like the earnings season episode, bringing on I guess something and giving a different perspective than the usual, right?
Mm-hmm.
So somebody bring up and try and talk about bringing in women. It was at the same time that you guys said something about Venezuela.
I don't think so. I think he was just joking. I think he was talking about the whole birth rate thing. Which I thought dovetailed. I was being cheeky when I was saying it. but I thought it dovetailed nicely into that with the idea of the growth, and you bring in people, more people, you have a more of a base to increase your GDP from. Now, granted, you are splitting it also by more people, but it is what it is.
More of a looking to create a long tail effect.
Yeah. I pity that he doesn't quite invest in the same way though. I saw it and I was going, I really wanted to hear more of that. Like how he makes that
Definitely.
How he makes that decision. Those investment decisions really, really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was a lot to cope, there's a lot to talk about around our own economy. And we kind of spent the time on that. And then we started to go down the road of
the market.
Going to the mic. So we went from the macro to micro, yeah. And then when we just didn't have enough time to go all the way down there.
Yeah.
Fully explore the micro.
So hopefully we can bring him back and do it on
talk along those lines. Yeah, but I don't know. I think you just don't want that. I think there's just something about economists that don't like it. I think maybe it's nice if you can do something that you don't have to worry about if it works or not. I'm not saying that's what they do. That's not what they do. But even he spoke about it. The fact that there's such a gap between the decisions and the actions and the end result means that, if you got it wrong 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, I might not be here to see it. Or you might not remember that.
Said it,
I do like bringing it to people though. That's another thing I really wanted. I was almost tempted. I didn't want to. I was almost tempted to just ask like all I think of them as the beginner questions. What's the GDP? What is the?
That's kind of what I wanted to. Because I
should ask
think
it, man.
value, the value for the average listener comes from asking the questions that, I wish I could get this economist. I see him on TV all the time.
Yeah.
What if I could just ask him any random thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the real things that I really I enjoyed so much of what you're saying that I never wanted to go there. But that was my initial thought to bring you on. Like just the real things. Because I genuinely believe that they don't know. They being just as a class, maybe economists, they don't realize how little the average man or a woman knows about what they're talking about. And sometimes they speak about that almost like they're proud, like, average man or woman can't they can't understand. We are the economy, so we can understand. But nobody links the two.
The economy is just some big machinery, and
like,
then we're outside of it.
Exactly. And like, you can't understand why it is that they have to make certain decisions. You can't understand. It's just nobody bothers to explain it. And a lot of things a lot of things in econ are counterintuitive or seem to be counterintuitive. And as a result, nobody wants to say the counterintuitive thing quite so bad. It's like you touched on closer to the end there, right? No politician is going to bravely get up and talk about, let's bring in workers from a different country. I say, well, why? That's political death. However, the economists know why it's needed, but then they don't talk about why it's needed in the real way that it's needed. They say, you have to, like Keenan was talking, and Keenan, I think, brought it closer than most do. But me, I want everybody to understand it. I want them to get it. I want them not only to get it, I want you to feel that decision. The Trans-Jamaica decision. Do we give up the toll, or do I want a bigger dividend? Like, I want us to sit with that decision because it's our decision. The decision is there nonetheless. The only thing that has been done is we've been spared the reality of having to make the decision. And so you can say, oh, them did fee. It's just like the point I was making about the highway when it was being built. It's easy now to say that they lack the foresight to see that there'd be traffic. They knew there was going to be traffic. But maybe the thinking at the time was that we're poor and these guys kind of have us. Them have the handle and we have the blade. If we don't give them good terms, they're not going to build a road. Right? So if they want us lock off the railroad, lock off the railroad. No, the railroad now run anyway. Lock it off, sure. 2026, everybody's like, oh, why we don't have a nice railroad?
Why can't we have trains?
Yeah, bro, listen, at the time, there was no train.
It would make so much sense.
Yeah, man, it makes sense, but you're like, yeah. What? Yeah. And I think no, say it, Danai.
Different time, different problems, eh?
Different time, different problems, and different thinking. And also a lot of it is different political thinking. What am I going to say in 2001? Hey, we're not going to employ all these people to build a road because in 2026, there's going to be this guy named Elon Musk. I'm going to have Tesla, going to make everybody care about that stuff. Everybody going to be like, well, we don't have that. We don't have trains. What happened to the trade in Jamaica? Right now, I need to win the next election, and I need this many people from these parishes to be employed. So, what you say? No trains? No trains. I'll sign here. Don't widen Mandela. What is Mandela? Mandela hype? You just sign. You get it done and kick it on the road. So somebody else's problem that. Here we are down the road, and it's our problem. And even that's a good decision. That's a thing that we should know too. Like right now, would you guys want Trans-Jamaica to give up that right that they have that stop? They stop any trains from running across any parish lines across the entire island. Would you want them to give that up right now? Knowing that it means that a lot of cargo is going to now go on. If it gets revamped, it's gonna go on the train lines, and then
you're assigning a deal for Trans-Jamaica to be less valuable later down the line.
Exactly. Yeah. How many people want that?
Exactly.
I think it's funny thing. I think only investors don't want
it. But most investors own Trans-Jamaica.
That's fine. But most
people are not investors.
Exactly.
Yeah, minority.
We're not talking. We're talking about all the section of Jamaica.
But that's what I want. You see, that's why I like the wide ownership. it's just like the dividend toll thing. Come back to it. What you want the trains, or you want 30 years of dividends, 30 more years of dividends. You want the share price to go to 30, or you want it to reach 20 and buck, or you want it to go.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, I know of a good amount of people who have an incentive in one direction, but then I also know that that good amount of people are not the vast majority, are far from the majority of people in Jamaica. So the decision is, I mean, yes, I mean, say half of the people in Jamaica say, okay, no, but then that's half of people in Jamaica is nowhere near half of Jamaica.
Yeah.
So the incentive does not hold for most people. So the decision you're giving them is only it's really to a small amount of people.
That's true, but the truth is, a lot of the decisions, most of the decisions made in Jamaica are made by a small amount of people.
Exactly that.
So yeah.
Thinking behind the wide ownership, though, might definitely have contributed to it. I mean, it's not nowhere close to the majority of the population, of course, like you said, but I wonder if there was some of that political thinking behind ensuring that wide ownership. More people on board.
More people on board, more people caring about that. I would hope so. I'd hope that thinking went into it, and not just wider ownership, because I mean, we want more people to buy, because we need to sell 2.5 billion shares. Yeah, I like the implications. Who knows? It could work out well. Maybe Trans Jamaica link CSX and decide that, hey, have them drop the law. We'll give up that right in exchange for being able to run a freight line.
If they get it right, yeah. If they take up the business line.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, man.
We eat our own food.
Yeah. Funny how that works. All right. Well, Sir Phil, tell us what you have in mind. What you have at the top of your mind? Like I said, I promise people I don't want to stay on all night.
I mean, I was thinking of a line to discuss with the economist that would take us down a Venezuelan road, but maybe too late for that.
However, I don't think.
But it's too late to talk to him, but it might be too late to talk about Venezuela too.
Yeah. Oh, okay. The Venezuelan road, and that's, I think, you link to your usual KIO, SVL, MGL thing.
Yeah, man. More steps along the road being walked, and we'll see how the rest of the month pans out. I mean, I noticed that that the MGL report is delayed. I don't know how common that is for them. Their full year audited report.
For the MGL group?
For the MGL group, yeah. I had a delay notice, and for the new due date is exactly at the end of the month, the end of the quarter, should I say.
Meaning the end of the first quarter?
Where is it? Yeah. 11 days time.
So they advise that the audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2025 will be published on or before March 31st. But I mean, it's not like the reporting date. You think they report early? That's MIL though, that's not MGL.
MGL says the same thing, man.
MGL also, well, I mean, MIL is under MGL. So yeah, they did say the same thing.
Yeah.
On or before March
MJ
31st.
issued the same notice. Yeah.
And what do you think? What are you thinking it is?
Yeah. Maybe there's something that might need to be reported as a subsequent event that might be significant, or
You thinking good or bad?
maybe it is. I am thinking good because I think the audited report itself for that year, I mean, purely numbers wise, isn't particularly great because they had a MJE had a last year, so they're pretty much have a last year.
And I think they're looking at their worst, as it is right now, as they've reported to us. In the 9 months, they are looking at their worst 9 months figure ever year to date. Yeah, and really and truly, if they close the year exactly at this point, it would have been their worst year ever in terms of profits, and revenue also. But if they have a nice big event in the fourth quarter, then maybe it can offset some of that. Who knows? It's tough times for them. So yeah, I get what you're saying, that it's generally, it's not necessarily the best of times for the group.
Yeah. But it's definitely a group that knows how to make diamonds out of pressure, so we'll see.
All right, tough times don't last. That is interesting. I don't know. Maybe in the time, I mean, they've been doing things nonetheless. They redeem, I think, 2 bonds.
2? I know one for sure.
I know one for sure.
Which one you guys know about?
The 10.75 MIL bond, right?
10.75 MIL bond. Yeah, due March 2026. They said that they will be redeeming it all, the full principal and all the accrued interest, and then it has since they said they're requesting on the 19th. Out of yesterday, yesterday for it to stop trading, and they did. It's no longer trading. And they said that they'll be paying it within 7 days of receiving the final listing of bondholders as at the record date, which would have been, again, yesterday, the 19th of March. Who knows? The story's there to be seen, but again, maybe we'll push them to do some interesting things on the market that we can all benefit from. Rising tide. That would be great. That would be great. All right. Well, I'll ask you, and Danai and Shay, I'll put it all together. You guys, what are you guys excited about for the end of the quarter?
Trying to make a dividend.
End of the quarter.
It's a try to make a dividend.
I prefer a bigger dividend, like dollar. Shady.
Acceptable.
The dollar dividend X date is the 30th.
Yes, sir.
It is. Alright, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
How much is it up by?
As is, it is 6 cents. You can get shares for $2.61, eh?
She said up in.
All right, so between announcement and now, I mean, what are we
between the announcement of the consideration meeting here and today.
Mm-hmm. No, declaration. Let me say declaration.
Yeah, I think it was declared same day. Let's see. The February 13th was when it was declared. Yeah.
13.
So, oh well, yeah, meeting on the 12th, declared after market close on the 13th. So
Mhm.
if I'm going off just, if I'm being militant as I should about it, let's see.
Close at 237.
Up 2.95% today. It has gone as high as, well, it has traded as high as 254 after the declaration. That was days after the declaration. But between that day and today.
Man.
Say that again?
When as high as 268. In terms of a closing price.
In terms of a closing price, yeah. In terms of its trading, it traded as high
March
as 275.
And traded as high as 275,
Yeah. So March 13th. March 13th is what you just said?
March 13th, yeah.
Yeah, the highest close. Yeah.
So up 295.
Up 2.95%, yeah. Point to point.
295. 2.95. Mhm.
Yeah. And the dividend yield is 2.46. So the Sharp have already gotten their dividend.
Everybody will make their money.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, the 31st don't come yet, right? So
Well,
who knows?
of course not. But big up who make their money.
Exactly. There's a curve and then there's a head of the curve. Can't knock it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. You know something I should check? You still how you on Fesco, Danai?
Still out, you know. Still out.
Out?
You bought it?
No. You crazy.
Oh my God. You know what? Today I said Randy's coming back this week.
Yes, I'm still out. I've not bought any.
Oh,
I
my
said
God.
it and I was like, Randy said 2 weeks, but look at us now.
Yeah, nah. I'm good without it, man. I'm good without it. I look like I'm not. Look at that. It halted down today.
Yeah, down.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, damn it. Damn you, Randy.
For me, ooh, it halt down. It looked like that's my aggressive halt down to it have what at 5 orders reversed.
You know, I was going to post up when I said the halt down.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to put war done. A question mark.
Oh
boy.
Oh my Lord. Yeah, no,
Big up
you thought about Randy?
No, I didn't really think. I'd be surprised if you had bought.
Oh.
I was thinking for a moment that you had said you'd bought, but I forget that it's Trans Jamaica that you'd said.
Oh, yes, you did say that.
Yeah. Wow. It's an aggressive. Yes,
aggressive.
Yeah. And is it me or it look retail? It look retail. 2.4 mil, 30, 600 and odd thousand shares. A good chunk of it, some of it taken back. You guys want stuff like this, get a My Money JA premium account. Here it allows you to actually get greater detail and see what's going on. Yeah, look aggressive. After it trade on to 350, I mean, it trade 405 after that, so that might just have been a nice little entrance opportunity for somebody else. But it always is.
Always is.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Fesco. What do you think that is? You think that's a confidence being lost?
I think the halt might have caused confidence to be lost, or just a sales happening. You know, I think that's where the confidence. I think a lot of the confidence came from seeing it going up and then telling yourself a nice story of why that's happening. You have something to tie. You have something to tie it to, and you see the movement. So then you buy on the movement, and you can confirm that you can give yourself reasons for that afterwards because already bought. Or I see it moving, and I can point to something that I think is a sensible reason for the movement. So then I can justify buying it.
Participate.
Yeah. But it deals with this part,
it's really just I'm buying because it's moving up, but I cannot. I'm not looking at that, and then that's when I say that's my reason. It's that buying for vibes and then saying vibes. Then you have to acknowledge with everybody in finance sounding like, boy, do not buy for vibes. That's the wrong reason to buy a stock.
Well, so the vibes catch us today. I mean, and you know what could happen though. It could rise going on to the 31st. Yeah, man. It could rise. I wouldn't be surprised if I see that. It rise go to the 31st. Because again, my concern was never about no. It's more about like, April 8th, April 9th, April 15th. When it's back down to $3, $2 little bit. Oh.
$2 maybe.
Yeah, $2.50, and then I have to deal with what's happening with Fesco.
Yeah.
That's what's happening with Fesco. If you're wondering what's happening with Fesco 2-3 weeks from now, that's what's happening with Fesco. The lack of knowing what's happening and the vibes done. It's the 31st. It's a vehicle for somebody. I would think maybe I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I could be. Hey, I don't own any.
Yeah.
That might just be a one person getting out early though. I mean, it always is. It always is somebody getting out, somebody else getting in. I was going. Then I said something that made me want to look for something, and I forget what it was. You said something just while we were talking about this. Then you're saying like you're asking about something. I know something I could see on my end. Oh, I know what it was. No. I know what it was. I know what it was. It's as one thing about the just what the trading after that order looked like, because he said the fear.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking.
I would look at the whole day and see what went down, how it went down.
That's exactly what I'm looking at. So to order 112. That is interesting. Let's see. It happened at about 10:40. I'm inclined also to think it's retail because of the reversal. Like I'm assuming that if it was, usual industry or managed trade, that sort of thing, it wouldn't have reversed. 10:43 to be exact.
Okay.
And then maybe after we talk about it better than but I think it's I feel like it's retail. If somebody see it and count their money and say, you know what, this can pay the light bill for the next. Yeah.
So that's on the nose.
Yeah. Yeah. Now left shore for onshore. That might be what this is. If I'd known this would happen, I would have bought some of the 360 and the 370. But moment for talk, I can say anything I want, all right? I probably wouldn't have bought it still. But hey, I mean, look at that nice spread. You can buy at 360 and 370 and 375. I sell within an hour or two at 405 and 495. That's like what? Maybe 5% after fees, depending on your broker. She kind of striking that. Ah, well.
Do what you have to do.
Yeah, if you can see it. Yeah, no more of these coming. Shay, what are you expecting for the rest of the quarter? Rest of the month/quarter?
Rest of the month. What happened with NCB was interesting. I'm going to think about that some more.
Like you're really on that, you know.
That has to be a step one.
Almost certainly, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, what else? Of course, SVL.
Well,
I should look at my trades and think. I don't know this stuff unless I'm looking at it.
Yeah, no, I understand. I just wondered if you had anything top of mind. Yeah, anything top of mind that you know, I was jumping out there. Oh, I should Signal. I'll wrap on this.
But
I'll wrap on it. But Signals, March, May, June,
yes,
next quarter. Yeah, I'll wrap on this. I'll wrap on Woodcats. If anybody look at it or thought about it,
them.
Everybody seems to have forgotten them. Myself too.
So quick.
Yeah,
$1
98.
IPO, nice
$1
IPO.
$1. Well, almost.
Nice. Almost.
98 cents today. 10 million shares traded.
Sweat the $1 boy.
Well, I mean, coming down. Second day of falling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm happy that there's something new on the market. What you guys feel about it? This I don't know what to call it. I don't even know what to call it. What do you feel about the trading of it now? Because it's...
I mean, fewer shares traded today than the first, 2 days or whatever days. When did it list? I don't remember. But, you know, it was like 30 million. And today it was only, 10 or something?
10, yeah.
Or so.
10.8. 10.8. Fourth day of trading, second day of falling. You know,
yeah, man, it come like maybe if it come to like 180 something, I feel like it can do 80 something. There was a 700 or something thousand? Oh, that disappeared. Of you know,
the broker link
orders.
Like
it can come down.
It look almost like it's being walled off. What do you think happened if it breached 90?
We need it to reach 90. Come down, friend.
You need it. Come down.
Here's my fretting. Here's what I would not like. Think about you talk about all the units over the last few days. 30 odd million shares on the first day, 30 odd million shares on the second day in terms of volumes. And 17 million shares on the third, and now 10.8 today. How much retail do you think was in those 230 odd, the 60 odd? It's almost 70 million shares there, because those people looking at a loss now already. It hit 90. Yeah. Everybody who bought in the IPO, stressed. Eh?
Yeah, man, that's my point.
I wouldn't want that, to be honest. I wouldn't want to see that happen.
Whoa.
Okay.
You don't want to see what happens
too. that kind of quick and heavy loss, and then the follow-up narrative IPO them are rubbish.
I'm okay with rubbish IPOs. You know, like I'm cool with that.
the talk anyway.
I
Yeah,
guess
man.
it's true.
I mean,
Go
yeah, I
with
don't
that.
That's
want
true.
it, but
That
if this to be, it's to be.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
yeah. I
mark
mean,
opportunity where you can find.
I
that's the
mean,
way
that's one
opportunity
side of
work.
it. That's one side of it. And the other side was just like, oh, you did seriously think I go happen?
What do you mean? I saw on Instagram an official ad. On the official ad on Instagram, and I
Said,
quote the IPO. Yeah, I go. Shh.
shoo.
Then he put his hand
I
back down.
see.
Then he put his
I
hand
see.
back down.
Oh
But-
boy, everybody
but-
forgot the hammer going back down.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't knocking it. I mean, the broker bringing in their excitement is between them and FSC, how that go. But it, I looking for something
It's gonna do
positive
what
to
it's
say. But
gonna
hey,
do.
yeah, your trade as low as 91 cents today. Did not expect that.
Hmm.
Oh really? I didn't even see
Sure.
that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. There was did the 700 and something trade? Or did it just disappear?
Was it there like near the end of the
71.
day?
It did there 91, I think. Or
91
90 somewhere. So.
cents?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, buy order or sell order?
Buy.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think that traded. I think it just left.
Let's scroll down and see. Oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah, depending on when. Was it near close to the end of
It
the day?
was. What time was that? I don't know. It was there probably around 11ish or so.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't think that traded though. And then it was gone, and then I was like, "Oh, it's not another queue, yeah."
See, you're trampling on people's hearts.
Dreams.
Wait,
Tread softly, you tread upon my dreams.
We all have hopes and
Wow.
dreams.
Wow. I never realized it traded all the way down to 91 cents.
Mm-hmm. I think that's when the 700 and something disappeared. Cause him say, "Hold on, what on here? So I'm gonna take up my money, man."
And there's a lot of buys at that's what you've been here. This 92 is where the 700,000 unit buy order is.
Mm-hmm. Did it go through?
It don't look so. It looked like it was cancelled.
Exactly.
And then probably here said, no, you can get it cheaper, you know.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah, they probably looked
Pick
at
up
it
them
also.
still.
Yeah.
We'll see how next week goes.
We will see.
Maybe it'll turn around.
I can tell you this. I'm getting a lot closer to buying it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm getting a lot closer to buying it.
Yeah, me too. That's what I'm saying. We'll see how next week goes.
Mhm.
I think it can go it can go lower. Yeah.
How low can you go?
I really want. I'm so interested in it because I'm wondering about like what the devastation will look like if it hits the 90.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause I genuinely don't know. I want to know like how people going to react. Maybe like the 90 cents. Like I'll buy it then. I never got to buy it at IPO. I don't know if there's like a different feel towards it because of its pricing.
Mhm.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. That's
It's
why
below. It's below. It's fake IPO price. It's psychological IPO price.
It is below its psychological. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's at the price
Yeah,
where
that's true.
where the same people have to be reminding themselves no, that no, member says 90
Yeah,
cents.
'cause-
Member says 90 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Boy.
Which hey, this might that reminder might make people more okay with selling.
Yeah, that's true.
Ah.
So you get an opportunity to see
You
it
actually get out
going in
about-
this direction,
uh-huh.
going down, but still you can come out with a little profit. you're more
Mhm.
motivated to sell than
not even with the profit field, not at a loss.
right, not at a loss.
Yeah.
Is actually a bigger motivator than profit.
Yep.
And
People
that
run from
could
the loss.
and that becomes a cascade, right?
Yep.
Possibly.
Boy.
Of course.
I'm wondering if that 700 became these two, this 5 and this 200 odd. Well, I mean, maybe they added
At
to it,
where?
or maybe not.
What price?
At 90. No, the 700.
Perhaps.
I don't remember where I said the 700. I can't find by the time, but I know it was at 92 cents, and all of a sudden it gone. So,
Mhm.
Maybe support will come.
yeah, I find it interesting how the broker linked orders looked. They've certainly seemed to wall off the sell queue.
Mm-hmm.
101, 103, 104, 105.
Brother.
Like there's, what is that? Broker linked interest in ensuring that it don't go too high.
Why?
Interesting.
Very, very interesting, yes.
Mm-hmm.
If another broker don't want to drop another
Which
prospectus
broker?
next week.
Which broker? The funny thing, I broker
That
link
is
order
true.
is which broker is that?
That's exactly.
And my broker are yours.
That's true. That is the real question.
Maybe the same broker that going drop a prospectus next week.
A broker has promised that?
No.
Oh, okay, you frightened me.
Facetious.
Yeah. 91 cents by order. Well, I guess it was a day order. And look at those 99,
What's the last
2.8.
IPO news you heard, Phil?
Last IPO news?
Mm-hmm. I feel like we hear something recently. Say more IPO or something soonish. Yeah. Can't remember where I said that.
Visual Vibe?
No, man, different.
No, that we kicked down the road. 18 to 24 months.
Yes. Yes,
Last thing I
that's
heard.
true.
But I feel,
Media.
I mean, NCB said that they have more, but I doubt that they would quickly come with another one.
Why not though? The market can take it.
And then, I sell things now.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, we need to
Them have a
move
big
past
one.
that little idea. Them do for them part it out. Talk to your client. If your client will have an agreement for you to buy X on behalf of them, no, you've done your part. Come in, send the next one.
Yeah,
Try
I
80
actually do
cents.
hate that idea because that restricts us to what? 12 IPO a year if we're lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah.
And it's
If you're
perfect like a
lucky.
whole month. More than that. But it's like you get a vibe that nobody don't want to bring an IPO while there's one on the market. I don't know if anybody has ever said that, but
it's
why?
It's been kind of said, and then sometimes you press it here, they're like, there's not that much money. Yeah.
I ask them to spend my ear money here or there.
Mm-hmm. And the belief that the retail doesn't necessarily have the funds to fund two big listings at the same time, or two listings.
Nothing even come to mind right now.
Oh well.
Oh well.
Psycho. Anyway, I think we've done more than enough. Good luck and congrats to the people. Are you guys not hearing me?
So let's hurry up now, Phil.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you guys are hearing me, I think we've done enough for the night. So I'm going to call it a night and say thank you. You're definitely not hearing me. I think you guys on YouTube are hearing me, but they're not hearing me in the space. Let me switch over and do it this way. All right, so I don't know if you guys hearing me now. Are you guys hearing me now? Nope.
You better not have nothing nice for. Hold on.
Let me try again. Are you guys hearing me
Look
now?
how long that.
More brands.
No,
More
still
brands.
don't.
Look how long that.
Mm.
You know what, maybe.
Let me try one last time. You guys hearing me? No. Wow.
It's Javon on YouTube.
All right, let me try again. You guys hearing me? Testing,
That's
testing.
interesting.
Nope.
105.
I think that when this happens, it ends. Okay. So for everybody, listening on YouTube and watching on the video on watching the video on Twitter, I guess you can hear me, and I guess maybe Danai and Shay can hear me now. Shay and Danai, if you can hear me now, I was trying. I could tell that it was going to drop anyway, and I was trying to wrap it, but I don't know.
Randy, I'm hearing you.
You're still not hearing me?
Okay.
Still not hearing me? I think.
Shay?
We are hearing you, Danai. We're hearing you.
Oh, the space died.
Yeah, the space died. So sorry if you're watching on YouTube, the space died, but I was rapping as you heard us saying. So thank you guys very, very much. And I'm gonna try and go back onto the space and do it all over. That's a bit too much for the night. But thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Thank you again to Keenan for joining us. And I hope you guys like that. I saw your questions a little after, guys. I'm sorry I couldn't ask him some of those questions. I did like the questions and the feedback though, but I saw it a little too late to ask him. So maybe the next time we'll get into them. Or if you're another economist and you don't mind it, DM me and we'd love to have the conversation. We can bring in another episode, especially if you do touch the market. We'd love to hear that. So thank you guys very, very much. It's been another Brick Talk. Look out for it again next week. Thank you and good night. And thank you, of course, to Shay and Danai. I don't know if you guys can hear me again, but in case you can't and you watch this in the future, thank you very, very much as always every week. Night, everybody.